Vincent Burns, an unholy exorcist, lived a life shrouded in shadows, constantly battling the darkness that lurked just beneath the surface of the world. His very existence was a challenge to the established order, a testament to the grim realities that demanded a different kind of faith. A boy's terrified face stared out from an old video recording, dated May 5, 1983, his eyes wide with a deep-seated fear. The voice of a man, filled with desperate urgency, thanked the priest who had finally arrived at their home. The camera's shaky view panned across a dimly lit living room, hinting at the unsettling atmosphere that already filled the space. He explained that his wife was confined to the bedroom, a chilling detail that immediately brought a sense of dread. The warm glow of the fireplace did little to dispel the cold fear that permeated every corner of the house. He had taken extreme measures, locking the bedroom door from the outside to ensure no one could enter or escape its confines. A heavy silence followed, thick with the weight of unspoken anxieties and a desperate, fragile hope. The husband described his wife's terrifying transformation, likening her to a wild animal, completely beyond recognition. The air grew heavier with each unspoken word, a grim weight settling over the quiet home. Her condition was dire, a stark reminder of the complete loss of human control she was experiencing. From his vantage point, the man's legs trembled, a silent testament to his profound fear and helplessness. He apologized for his blunt question, but his desperation outweighed any politeness he might have felt in that moment. His feet shifted nervously on the floor, anticipating the answer to his unspoken, terrifying query. His voice trembled as he voiced his ultimate fear: the exorcism might fail, leaving them without any hope. A brief, unsettling pause hung in the air, amplifying the dread of the situation. The darkness itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable confrontation to begin. Despite his fears, he urged the priest to enter the bedroom, knowing this was their only remaining chance. The two figures stepped into the somber interior, their shadows stretching long and distorted behind them. The quiet deepened, hinting at the solemn ritual about to unfold in the room beyond. Mr. Smith, the man behind the camera, watched with a worried expression, the priest a steady presence beside him. The tension in the room was palpable, a silent scream waiting to erupt at any second. The priest's face remained stoic, a picture of calm determination against the encroaching darkness. A moment of anticipation stretched, filled with unspoken anxieties and a desperate hope for a miracle. Suddenly, the priest's voice cut through the silence, questioning the man behind the lens. Mr. Smith flinched, his face distorting in the camera's view, a vivid reflection of his inner turmoil. The recording flickered, momentarily losing its focus as the tension escalated within the house. The priest then ordered the camera to be turned off, addressing the boy, Jack, directly. The screen went black, plunging the entire scene into an ominous, foreboding silence. A faint, unsettling sound emerged from the darkness, a chilling prelude to the horror about to unfold. The priest, now holding a cross, turned to Mr. Smith, ready to begin the grim task at hand. He informed Mr. Smith that he would need his assistance, as the solemn rite of exorcism required 2 participants. A quiet understanding passed between the 2 men, sealing their grim pact against the demonic presence. The priest then gave a stern warning to young Jack, telling him to stay out no matter what unfolded inside. Jack reluctantly obeyed, his small hand slowly pulling the door shut, leaving them alone with the horror. The heavy thud of the door echoed through the house, sealing the fate of those within its walls. The closed door now stood as a silent barrier, separating the boy from the unfolding nightmare. The camera's feed flickered, a subtle hint of the supernatural forces that were rapidly taking hold. The image wavered, reflecting the unseen disturbances that were beginning to manifest with terrifying speed. Time seemed to accelerate, skipping past the initial, terrifying moments of the ritual. The darkness offered no comfort, only a chilling void where unimaginable things were happening. A blood-curdling scream suddenly pierced the silence, tearing through the quiet house with brutal force. The door rattled violently, as if something monstrous was desperate to escape its confines. The frantic sounds of struggle intensified, painting a horrifying picture of what lay beyond the door. Jack's hand reached for the doorknob, his resolve to stay out crumbling under the weight of the screams. The door burst open, revealing the priest collapsing to the floor, barely able to utter a terrified prayer. He cried out for mercy, his voice filled with a desperate terror as he faced an unseen, monstrous horror. The priest, eyes wide with fear, screamed for the door to be opened, attempting to flee the room. His face contorted in agony, his final, desperate plea echoing through the space as he was pulled back. The door swung open further, revealing streaks of blood across the floor, a gruesome testament to the violence. The horrifying scene unfolded before Jack's eyes, a nightmare brought to life in his own home. A trail of blood led deeper into the room, accompanied by sickening crunching sounds from within. Jack whispered his mother's name, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and disbelief. His small shadow stretched across the blood-soaked floor, a silent witness to the unfolding tragedy. A grotesque figure lay twisted on the ground, its body broken and surrounded by crimson. The camera shook violently, capturing the sound of frantic footsteps running away from the horror. He cried out again for his mother, his voice filled with a heartbreaking, desperate plea. His desperate cries echoed through the house, a child's terror in the face of an unspeakable evil. The possessed figure lunged forward, a horrifying blur of malice and utter destruction. A guttural roar filled the air, the demon's grotesque face a vision of pure, unadulterated evil. The image glitched violently, signaling the abrupt and terrifying end of the recording. The screen cut to a bold, red title announcing, "The Great Vincent, a new chapter in the unfolding darkness." The chilling silence of the aftermath settled, leaving a lingering sense of dread in its wake. The click of a keyboard brought us back to the present, to a desk bathed in the pale glow of an old computer monitor. Chloe Macintosh, the sheriff, sat startled, clutching a clipboard, her face etched with clear concern. The air in the office was thick with unspoken questions and a heavy sense of unease. She asked, her voice tight with disbelief, if the horrifying tape was actually a movie production. The grim reality of the footage slowly began to sink in, chilling her to the very bone. A frustrated sigh escaped her lips, confirming the dreadful truth of the recording she had just witnessed. Her hand hovered over the tape, wondering if such disturbing footage could even serve as valid evidence. The weight of the case pressed down on her, a chilling mystery demanding answers from an impossible past. Outside, a steady rain fell, mirroring the somber mood inside the sheriff's department. The quiet continued, broken only by the rhythmic drumming of rain against the windowpane. Chloe stood over her desk, papers scattered, lost in thought as she reviewed the tragic details of the case. She recounted the grim discovery, the entire Smith family and a Catholic priest, all found dead. Pictures on her desk showed the smiling Smith family, juxtaposed with the gruesome image of the deceased priest. The facts of the case were clear, yet a deeper, more unsettling truth felt hidden beneath them. The suspect in the case was another priest, a detail that added another layer of confusion to the tragedy. A stark silhouette of a priest holding a gun appeared, casting a menacing, dangerous shadow. He was accused of firing 2 bullets into Mrs. Smith, a violent act that defied all explanation. The image of the gun emphasized the brutality of the alleged crime, leaving no room for doubt. The suspect vehemently denied the accusations, insisting he had killed no one in that house. Despite his plea, the priest, with his glowing red eyes, remained behind bars, awaiting judgment. With multiple witnesses, however, his denial carried little weight, and he was held in jail. Chloe leaned back, a thoughtful expression on her face, piecing together the unsettling puzzle before her. Yet one detail continued to bother her, a strange inconsistency that hinted at a deeper, darker truth. The mystery deepened, a chilling realization slowly dawning on her as she reviewed the files. The true killers of Mr. Smith and his son were not who everyone assumed them to be. The photos showed Mrs. Smith's contorted mouth and claw-like hand, evidence of her monstrous transformation. It was his own wife who had committed the heinous acts, driven by an unknown, horrifying force. A cold shiver ran down her spine as the implications of this dreadful truth settled in. What puzzled her most was the complete absence of any psychiatric history for Mrs. Smith. Chloe pondered, her expression a mix of confusion and mounting dread as she sought answers. How could a seemingly normal woman transform into the monster captured on that chilling tape? The silence was broken by an unexpected presence, a quiet intrusion into her private thoughts. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts, drawing her attention to the new, unexpected arrivals. Two figures, a nun and an older gentleman, stood silently behind her, their presence a stark contrast to the police station. The air crackled with an unfamiliar authority, hinting at a power beyond her comprehension. Chloe jumped, papers scattering around her, startled by their sudden, unannounced appearance. A startled cry escaped her lips as the nun, Beatrice, smiled serenely at her. The scattered papers were a small testament to her shock, a momentary loss of composure. Beatrice asked innocently if she had startled Chloe, a faint, knowing smile playing on her lips. A peculiar tension filled the room, a clash of worlds in the quiet, mundane office. Beatrice explained her patient. Wait, observing Chloe's deep concentration with an unnerving calm. Chloe stammered, trying to regain her composure, insisting she was fine despite her obvious shock. The unspoken question hung between them, a silent challenge to the nun's unauthorized presence. Chloe questioned their unauthorized entry, demanding to know their identities and purpose in her office. The nun's gaze remained steady, holding a secret power that Chloe couldn't yet comprehend. The older man from the Vatican gently addressed Chloe, signaling a shift in the conversation. He gestured for her to follow, leading her toward a new, unforeseen path and a deeper mystery. Chloe, still wary, followed the Vatican representatives, stepping into a world far more complex and dangerous than she had ever imagined. Unholy exorcist, Vincent, a priest scarred by battle, stood in the pouring rain, solemnly praying for the souls lost to darkness. He wished for them to find peace in a tranquil embrace, swept away and sacrificed by the shadows. With a cross etched on his forehead and blood on his face, he gazed out at the burning devastation. He vowed to continue his relentless fight, determined that the deaths of the fallen would not be in vain. The heavy rain continued to fall, washing away some of the grime, but his resolve remained etched on his features. He closed his eyes, momentarily lost in the weight of his promise. Later, under a clear sky, he stood among a field of makeshift graves, each marked by a simple wooden cross. He finished his prayer, a silent testament to the Lord's mercy and peace. A young woman, Leisure, pulled up in a sleek car, grinning widely. She had brought the vehicle, announcing her arrival to Mr. Vincent with an eagerness that seemed out of place. Vincent, however, was not amused. He looked back at her with a hint of annoyance, reminding her that he had never actually asked her to retrieve the car. Leisure quickly apologized, explaining that she felt it was her duty to handle the driving for a man doing such great work. She hoped to impress him, or at least avoid his ire. Vincent dismissed her flattery with a wave of his hand, lighting a cigarette. He told her there was no need for such pleasantries, as such praise happened often enough. Suddenly, the skull hanging from his belt, a sentient magical item, flared with anger. It screamed, calling Vincent a bastard and threatening to never forget his humiliation. Leisure was startled, asking why he still hadn't taken care of the noisy skull. Vincent simply chuckled, reminding her that she too remembered its troublesome nature. He held up a glowing cross, his gaze hardened. For demons, he explained, death was a trivial thing, they were not easily dispatched. With a flash of golden light, he pressed the cross into the skull's eye socket. The skull shrieked in agony, a chilling sound echoing through the air. Vincent smiled, a dark, unsettling grin spreading across his face. He believed that, at the very least, they should suffer as much as the sins they committed. Leisure stared at him, a shiver running down her spine. She realized this man, her boss, was truly insane, his methods far beyond conventional understanding. The nun, who had been observing, calmly interjected. She urged everyone to hurry to the second request, keeping their mission on track. The nun stood tall and composed, her presence a stark contrast to Vincent's unsettling demeanor. She was ready to move forward, despite the strange company. Vincent turned to the nun, holding the chattering skull. She asked if they weren't going back, clearly uneasy about the direction their journey was taking. Vincent explained that by now, the demons who had stolen human bodies must be moving for their purpose, their sinister plan already in motion. The nun listened intently, her expression serious. She understood the urgency of their task and the danger they faced. Vincent confirmed that whatever they were searching for was nearby, a critical detail that meant they were closing in on the demonic threat. They drove through a winding canyon road, the landscape stark and unforgiving. It was a place where danger could lurk around any corner. Vincent, sitting in the back, revealed a crucial piece of information. The item the demons sought was not stored in the Vatican, as one might expect. Instead, he said, it was located in America, a surprising twist that meant their journey was about to take them far from home. The nun explained that Father Andres, the man who had excommunicated Vincent, wanted to entrust this important item to him. Vincent, surprised, questioned why the man who excommunicated him would want to trust him with such a vital task. Leisure, ever curious, cautiously asked why he was expelled from the Vatican in the first place, a question that hung heavy in the air. The nun, with a slight smile, explained that Mr. Vincent had broken taboos multiple times, earning him a reputation as a rogue agent. She elaborated further, stating that he stole holy relics to make weapons, a sacrilegious act that showed his unconventional approach. He also hunted demons through violent methods, far from the Vatican's preferred, more discreet tactics, which further set him apart. Or, she continued, he secretly built an armory under the cathedral, a feat still famous to this day, showcasing his audacity and resourcefulness. Vincent, deep in thought, simply murmured, Okshin, a name that seemed to hold a deeper meaning for him, perhaps his true identity or a title. Without warning, he ordered Leisure to turn the car around. She responded with a confused, "What?" clearly taken aback by the sudden command. Vincent insisted the road ahead was dangerous, sensing an unseen threat. His instincts were rarely wrong. He repeated his command, "I said turn it," his voice firm and urgent, leaving no room for argument. Leisure protested, exclaiming that they would fall right off the mountain if she made such a sharp turn, fearing for their lives. The nun grabbed the wheel, her face contorted in alarm, asking if they couldn't just turn around normally, trying to avert disaster. The car skidded dramatically, tires squealing as Leisure struggled to control the vehicle under the sudden, violent maneuver. An explosion erupted behind them as the car narrowly avoided a projectile. Vincent, with a smirk, simply asked, "See?" proving his foresight. The car sped forward, a cloud of dust and debris marking their escape from the immediate danger. In the rear-view mirror, a large yellow bus was visible, barreling down the road, clearly in pursuit. The bus gained on them, its ominous presence growing larger. It was a relentless chase, and the small car was outmatched in size. The nun and Leisure exchanged worried glances, the tension in the car palpable as the bus closed in. The nun urgently told Leisure to stop the car, realizing they couldn't outrun their pursuers indefinitely. A monstrous, horned face appeared in the bus's side mirror, confirming their fears. It was a demon, its yellow eyes glowing malevolently. Another explosion rocked the car as the bus rammed them from behind. Leisure gasped, realizing the true nature of their attacker. Vincent, his face alight with a fierce smile, declared, "I knew it," confirming his earlier suspicions about the road's danger. He suddenly burst out of the car's sunroof, a daring move that shocked his companions. Vincent leaped, a silhouette against the fiery explosion, heading straight for the pursuing bus like a superhero. He landed with a clang on the bus, his sword drawn, ready to engage the demonic occupants in a brutal fight. He swung his blade, shattering the bus window, and began his assault on the demons inside, a whirlwind of violence. Vincent continued his attack, firing his gun and slashing with his sword, a one-man army against the demonic horde. The bus speared wildly, eventually crashing down the side of the mountain, a fiery wreck. Vincent, now outside the wreckage, continued his onslaught, his glowing cross and weapons dispensing holy wrath. He fired relentlessly into the struggling demons, ensuring their suffering for the sins they had committed. The bus lay overturned at the bottom of the canyon, its purpose thwarted, but the fight was not over. Vincent confronted the demon driver, who now stood revealed in a more human-like form, but with the same menacing horns and grotesque smile. The demon tried to flee, but Vincent stopped him, noting that running away was unlike their kind, suggesting a deeper reason for their fear. The bus was completely wrecked, yet, to Vincent's astonishment, not a single demon was dead. He wondered what kind of trick this was, clearly a new challenge. He picked up a small briefcase that had fallen from the wreckage, examining it with a thoughtful expression. Leisure and the nun, having safely reached the bottom of the canyon, stared at the wrecked bus in disbelief. Vincent observed the briefcase, noticing the papal emblem on it. This was definitely the item they had been seeking. He realized the demons had beaten them to it, already acquiring the precious object. The demon, still alive, urgently warned Vincent not to open the bag, claiming it contained something no human could ever handle. Vincent questioned what it was then, intrigued by the demon's desperate warning. The demon confessed he didn't know either. The higher-ups never told them the full truth. Despite the unease and the demon's warnings, Vincent decided to open the briefcase, his curiosity outweighing caution. Inside, bathed in a soft ethereal glow, lay a person, a young girl with long white hair, sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the chaos around her. This was the item the demon sought, not a relic, but a living being. What happens next changes everything, and nobody sees it coming. Vincent, a priest with a troubled past, found himself in a desolate landscape as his companion, a worried woman, hesitated to open a mysterious box. He simply reassured her, suggesting she could just check its contents and then close it again if she wished. With a soft click, his hand pushed open the lid and a blinding, brilliant light erupted from within. He, the woman, and a nun all recoiled, their faces etched with surprise as Vincent muttered, trying to identify what lay inside. Within the box, nestled amongst ancient ruins, was a sleeping girl with long, white hair, curled up as if in a womb. The worried woman immediately wondered if it was a corpse, her voice tinged with fear, as Vincent looked on with a grim expression. He reached out to check, confirming that there was no breathing, no pulse, leaving them to ponder the nature of this strange discovery. Vincent questioned the nun about the girl's identity, but the nun had no answers, while his other companion let out a startled cry. The nun added that she hadn't been informed about the box's contents either, deepening the mystery surrounding the lifeless girl. Vincent then declared their next destination, a church, believing they might find some answers there. They soon arrived at a dilapidated old church, its steeple and crosses standing stark against the gloomy sky, surrounded by a desolate graveyard. As he walked towards the entrance, Vincent observed the widespread destruction, noting that everything around them was wrecked. His female companion Beatrice cheerfully saluted, declaring she would stay outside and wait for them. She explained that the bag she was carrying would make it difficult for her to enter a church, causing Vincent to call her by her name, Bea. Beatrice, startled by the sudden shift, nervously asked if they were truly going inside, warning them that a demon might be lurking within. The nun, however, merely offered a calm, knowing smile, stating that she knew the risks, but felt safest staying close to Mr. Vincent. Beatrice was left standing alone outside the eerie, broken church, clutching her bag, watching them go. But her courage quickly faltered, and she decided to follow them, struggling to carry her heavy bag up the steps. Inside, the church was a scene of horror, with bodies strewn across the pews, blood staining the floor and walls. The three companions stood amidst the carnage, the silence of the dead echoing around them. Beatrice and the nun looked on, their faces pale with shock and grief at the sight of so much death. Vincent, ever practical, instructed the two women to check the other floors for clues. Beatrice immediately balked, confessing her fear and reluctance to venture further into the grim building. Vincent pointed out that the deceased were still clutching something, their guts seemingly stuck to the objects, making it hard to retrieve them. Beatrice, still scared but resolute, agreed to go up, but made Vincent promise to come if she screamed. Meanwhile, Vincent discovered a blood-soaked notebook, its pages dark and sticky with a thick, reddish substance. He sat on a shattered pew, carefully examining the grim diary, hoping it held some answers. Flipping through the pages, he found nothing particularly special, just the ordinary entries of a priest. However, one page caught his eye. It had a distinctly different color from the rest, hinting at something hidden. He gently rubbed the discolored page, wondering about its secret. Then, using a lighter, he revealed hidden text, a message that appeared only when exposed to heat. Vincent's gaze sharpened as he deciphered the hidden words, the new information changing his perception of their situation. The diary entry spoke of a woman who came to visit the priest, seeking help. The priest instantly understood her plight upon seeing her skin, which had turned to stone. She had been plagued by mysterious whispers and tormented by terrible nightmares, a condition the priest had only ever heard about in legends. He had felt a sense of relief, knowing that Father Andres, the esteemed chief exorcist, was present. The priest firmly believed that if anyone could save her, it would be Father Andres. But as the ritual progressed, something began to feel profoundly strange to him. The grand exorcism ritual had failed. Not only did it not work, but her symptoms had actually worsened, a baffling outcome. He questioned why the father's method, which was always correct, had failed so miserably this time. The diary then recounted how Father Andres had hastily entrusted the priest with 2 boxes before leaving abruptly. The priest agonized over the woman's fate, knowing that if left unchecked, the demon would completely consume her. In the end, they were forced to lock the possessed woman in the basement, a drastic measure only possible because she still retained a glimmer of humanity. The diary concluded with the priest's plea to God, asking for punishment for his failure to save her. Back in the present, Vincent's eyes widened with a grim realization the demon was still in the basement. He looked towards the shattered wooden door and broken chains on the floor, evidence of the demon's escape. Upstairs, Beatrice and the nun navigated a long, eerie hallway, its patterned carpet stretching into the dim light. Beatrice found some comfort in the scattered light filtering through the broken windows, making her feel slightly calmer. The nun agreed, remarking on the unexpected benefit of the shattered glass before her gaze fell upon something remarkable. She spotted it immediately, a sacred item resting on a nearby shelf. It was a gleaming golden chalice, intricately carved and radiating an ancient aura. Beatrice, surprised by the nun's quick identification, asked how she knew what it was so readily. The nun simply replied that she worked in a related field and intended to give the artifact to Mr. Vincent. They had found no further clues related to the mysterious box, so the nun suggested they check the last room in the hall. As they walked, a stone statue of a woman stood silently against the wall, watching them pass. Beatrice glanced at the statue, a flicker of unease crossing her face. The statue was undeniably imposing, its features sharp and ancient, holding a pickaxe. Beatrice turned to the nun, asking if such a statue had been there when they first arrived. A closer look at the statue revealed a chilling detail. One of its eyes was a dark, swirling void, like a broken pattern. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, the statue's head turned, its gaze fixed upon them. Beatrice gasped, her voice trembling as she questioned if it had truly moved, just as the statue raised its heavy pickaxe. The stone figure advanced, its pickaxe scraping against the floor with a terrifying sound. Beatrice, clutching her gun, shouted a desperate warning, reminding the statue that her weapon could kill even demons. With a scream, she fired the gun, the blast echoing through the desolate hall. The bullets struck the stone, but seemingly had little effect. The statue let out a guttural cry of pain as the shots hit, but it continued its relentless advance. Bea, a police officer on a terrifying call, found herself face to face with a horror that defied explanation, her heart pounding with raw fear. A blood-soaked axe crashed down, narrowly missing her as she screamed, the sound echoing in the confined space. From within the shattered wall, grotesque eyes watched, their malevolent gaze sending shivers down her spine. Through the chaos, she cried out desperately for Mr. Vincent, hoping against hope that he could still save them from this nightmare. The legend of Vincent, an unholy exorcist, was about to unfold, revealing a past shrouded in fire and dark promises. It began on a desolate road where a lonely school bus and a car sat abandoned, the air thick with unspoken tragedy. Inside the bus, a skull-faced entity named Alcar stirred, complaining about its undignified display in the vehicle. 2 skull ornaments swayed from the rearview mirror, a macabre symbol of Alcar's current, unwelcome state. Alcar, the self-proclaimed ruler of the corpses, begrudgingly accepted its fate, though its voice stripped with disdain. A sinister smile spread across the skull's face, a silent promise of the chaos it intended to unleash. It then warned that a demon, much like itself, would always strike when its victims were at their most vulnerable. From Alcar's gaping maw, a swarm of centipede-like creatures slithered forth, their bodies glowing with an infernal light. The demonic centipedes enveloped Alcar, transforming it into a fiery, monstrous entity within the confines of the bus. Alcar looked upon the terrified passengers, dismissing them as mere losers, trapped in their pathetic existence. Its monstrous form pulsed with malevolent energy, its eyes burning with a dark intelligence as it surveyed its new domain. Alcar offered the tormented souls a chance for revenge against the humans who had brought them to this fiery end. The price was simple. They had to surrender their very bodies to its control, becoming vessels for its wrath. I, Alcar, it declared, its voice booming with infernal power, will grant that wish. 2 figures, once human, now glowed with an eerie light, their bodies twisted into grotesque, possessed forms. One of the possessed figures thrashed and screamed, the centipedes burning from within, a horrifying spectacle of their dark pact. Alker's chilling promise was delivered, turning the victim's desperation into a horrifying reality. Back in the present, a massive statue-like monster burst through the wall, its stone fist aimed directly at the officer. "It's coming over," the officer yelled, her voice laced with terror as the colossal figure advanced. The officer stood ready, her gun raised, while the nun watched, holding a small grenade, a desperate plan forming between them. She swung the axe with all her might, striking the statue monster's face, a desperate attempt to halt its charge. A sharp cry of pain escaped her lips as the impact jolted her hand, leaving it bruised and throbbing. Gritting her teeth, she gripped the broken shaft of the axe, refusing to yield, ready to strike again. With renewed determination, she landed another blow, the wood splintering further against the monster's stone skin. Her face was a mask of pain and grim resolve. Every ounce of her strength poured into this impossible fight. The nun, observing the brutal exchange, murmured that the fight was becoming too much, her concern evident. With a heavy sigh, the nun confessed that this might indeed be their last stand, a final, desperate struggle for survival. She then asked the officer if it was time to deploy their last resort, their eyes falling on a sacred artifact. The officer looked at the golden censer, a vessel for holy water, her last glimmer of hope in the face of overwhelming odds. The nun quickly explained that holy water was a potent tool in exorcisms, a weapon against the unholy. She advised the officer to pour the blessed liquid into the gaping void on the monster's face, targeting its vulnerable point. The statue monster lunged forward, its weapon raised high, ready to deliver a crushing blow. The officer braced herself, holy water sloshing in the censer, preparing for a daring throw. With a powerful swing, she launched the censer, sending a stream of holy water arcing through the air. The sacred liquid struck the monster's face, sizzling and burning as it made contact. The statue monster shrieked in agony, a sound of pure torment, as the holy water scorched its demonic essence. It recoiled, smoke billowing from its head as the cleansing power of the holy water took effect. The monster's head shattered into fragments, falling to the ground in a shower of stone and dust. It worked. The officer cheered, a wave of relief washing over her, believing the threat was finally over. "Not yet," the nun warned, her voice calm but firm, her gaze fixed on the billowing smoke. "Come out of there quickly," the nun urged, sensing a greater danger lurking within the dissipating dust. The officer looked back, a flicker of fear in her eyes, as if she already knew the nun's warning held grave truth. Beneath the broken stone, the statue monster's true form emerged, a horrifying, fleshy abomination of eyes and tentacles. The monstrous entity roared, its gaping maw filled with razor-sharp teeth, its fury directed at the nun. It spewed a torrent of foul yellow liquid at the officer, a bile attack that caught her off guard. The officer cried out as the caustic fluid splashed across her, burning and stinging her skin. The monster howled, demanding to know why she had dared to defile it with filthy holy water. It then questioned why she possessed the mysterious box, a relic intended for someone named Mr. Mill. "Triple V. Vincent," the officer screamed, her voice breaking with pain and terror, calling out for her protector. The monster sneered, promising her that no matter how loud she screamed, her priest would never come to her aid. It then chillingly claimed that Vincent had never even noticed its presence until the very moment of his death. A flashback revealed Vincent, axe in hand, facing a colossal, shadowy figure, his end seemingly inevitable. The monster gloated, relishing the memory of Vincent's terrified eyes in his final moments. Its cavernous mouth, lined with rows of pointed teeth, opened wide, ready to consume its next victim. "I like it," the monster hissed, its voice dripping with dark pleasure, staring at the officer with predatory glee. It promised to collect her eyes too, a chilling threat that sent a fresh wave of fear through the officer. Suddenly, Vincent was there, alive and well, an axe now firmly in his grasp, ready to turn the tide. "Mill?" Vincent asked, his voice calm amidst the chaos, wondering if this was the demon behind the entire incident. The monster lunged, its tentacles flailing, but Vincent moved with impossible speed, deflecting the attack. He walked forward, each step deliberate, the axe glinting with a dangerous light, his presence radiating power. "Seems like a pretty high-ranking one," Vincent mused, assessing the monster with a chilling coolness. If demons like you are following him, Vincent continued, his gaze piercing, what is it, your plan? He revealed his chest, scarred and marked, a testament to countless battles, a raw display of his resilience. You, the monster stammered, its confidence faltering, unable to comprehend Vincent's survival. I clearly hit your head with an axe, it raged, confused and enraged by Vincent's impossible return. This time, the monster bowed, its voice filled with desperate fury. I'll make sure you die. It launched itself at Vincent, its mouth wide, attempting to devour him whole, a final, desperate attack. Vincent moved with blinding speed, bringing his axe down with crushing force, slicing through the monster's body. You can't kill me either, the monster declared, its severed parts still writhing, its voice echoing with defiant certainty. Vincent stood before the grotesque demon, his eyes glowing with an unearthly red light, a silent promise of the battle to come. The nun watched, her eyes wide with the profound realization, understanding the true nature of their unlikely savior. She finally understood why Father Andres had been so desperate to find Mr. Vincent, his urgent quest now making perfect sense. Vincent Burns, a determined exorcist, confronted a powerful demon, ready to extract the information he needed to fight the forces of hell. He held the jar containing the demon's living eye, using it to interrogate the creature about its plans and the location of its superior. The demon, trapped and furious, could only scream in defiance, refusing to yield to the exorcist's relentless questioning. Vincent, unfazed by its resistance, decided to escalate his methods, handing the jar to his companion with the dismissive remark about the demon's unhelpful answers. The nun, Sister Isabella, calmly accepted the jar, her expression revealing a chilling readiness to follow the exorcist's lead. She began shaking the jar violently, aiming to disorient and force the demon into submission, its trapped eye bouncing wildly within. The police officer, Sarah, watched the scene unfold with a mix of shock and unease, clearly disturbed by the priest's ruthless tactics. She stood frozen, her face a mask of disbelief as the exorcist continued his brutal interrogation through the shaking jar. Vincent, however, simply offered a satisfied smirk, confident that his methods would eventually break the demon's will. The room around them bore the marks of a recent struggle, a gaping hole in the wall suggesting an earlier, more violent escape. Sarah then checked an empty briefcase, realizing that whatever they had been guarding was no longer there, increasing her apprehension. Vincent himself opened a larger case, confirming that their objective, a mysterious child, had indeed vanished from their custody. The officer's frustration mounted as she looked at the empty cases, realizing their critical mission had been compromised. Sister Isabella, meanwhile, held a small, empty box, confirming that the child's protective container was also gone. The three of them stood amidst the wreckage, the broken wall, a stark reminder of the child's powerful escape, leaving them bewildered. Meanwhile, a grotesque, skull-faced demon lord reveled in his victory, proudly displaying a skull as a trophy. He stood surrounded by his demonic horde and a stolen school bus, celebrating what he believed was the successful capture of their target. The demon lord admired the skull, a symbol of his power and the chaos he intended to unleash upon the world. He continued to gloat, his evil laughter echoing across the desolate landscape, convinced that his plan was now unstoppable. His minions, a motley crew of monstrous figures, gathered around the bus, anticipating the next stage of their dark conquest. The demon lord's laughter filled the air, oblivious to the small, white-haired child standing silently nearby, radiating an otherworldly calm. He continued his triumphant display, unaware that the child, whom he presumed was merely a helpless captive, possessed an unimaginable power. The child stood alone in the barren field, their white hair and simple dress contrasting sharply with the desolate surroundings, a beacon of quiet mystery. One of the lesser demons, eager to please its master, lunged towards the child, attempting to seize the seemingly vulnerable target. Another demon quickly intervened, warning his comrade to stand down, sensing something unsettling about the child's presence. Despite the warning, the demons surrounded the child, their monstrous forms looming, ready to overpower the small figure. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the child, a pure, devastating force that tore through the demonic ranks like a cosmic explosion. The demons were instantly engulfed, their forms disintegrating into a shower of brilliant rose petals consumed by the child's divine power. The demon lord watched in horror as his skull mask cracked, witnessing his entire army wiped out in a single overwhelming flash. He crumpled to the ground, utterly defeated, his grand plans shattered by the unexpected power of the child. The demon lord lay motionless, his skull mask now completely broken, a testament to the immense power he had so gravely underestimated. Vincent arrived at the scene, surveying the aftermath of the battle, a surreal landscape of rose petals and disintegrating demon remains. He stared, wide-eyed, at the impossible sight, the air thick with the scent of roses and the dust of vanquished evil. A demon's body faded into petals, a beautiful yet terrifying display of the child's destructive force. Vincent, ever vigilant, quickly raised his gun, ready to confront whatever lingering threat might remain. He clicked his weapon, preparing for a fight, his expression stern and resolute in the face of the unknown. Sarah and Sister Isabella looked on in astonishment, observing Vincent's readiness to engage with the mysterious force. The white-haired child stood unharmed amidst the swirling petals, their innocent gaze betraying no hint of the devastating power they possessed. The child remained perfectly still, a serene figure in the midst of the destruction, the rose petals softly falling around them. Sarah gasped, realizing the child was not only alive, but had been the source of the incredible power that annihilated the demons. Vincent pondered the child's true nature, wondering if such power could only belong to an angel, given its purity and devastating effect on evil. The child looked up at him with an unreadable expression, a silent question in their eyes. Then, the child spread their arms wide, an expansive gesture that seemed to encompass the entire, now peaceful, field. Vincent and his companions tried to interpret the child's silent communication, unsure if it was a greeting, an offering, or something else entirely. Vincent, deciding he couldn't leave the powerful child to wander, took matters into his own hands, grabbing the child by the arm. He then gently placed the child into the empty briefcase, intending to secure them until they could understand their abilities. Holding the briefcase, Vincent walked away, the officer looking utterly bewildered by the priest's unconventional methods. The trio continued their journey, Vincent carrying the mysterious child, while Sarah still seemed to be processing the day's events. Sarah, unwilling to let Vincent simply abscond with the child, suddenly leaped onto his back, attempting to stop him. She clung to him, clearly upset by his decision and desperate to prevent him from taking the child without proper consideration. Far away, in a dimly lit alley, a different kind of confrontation was brewing, a place where shadows held their own dangers. A heavily muscled man, our boy, arrived in the alley, looking around with an air of impatience, holding a coffee cup. Two local thugs, menacing figures with hard stares, watched him from the shadows, sizing him up. The braided thug called out to our boy, asserting their control over the alley, unaware of the dangerous man they were addressing. Our boy offered a wide, disarming smile, a seemingly friendly gesture that masked his true, formidable nature. The thug then questioned the man's presence, wondering why a seemingly rich individual would be casually drinking coffee in their territory. His partner chimed in, adding to the intimidation, suggesting that the man might cause trouble if he didn't leave. Without a word, our boy abruptly fired his gun, shocking the thugs and shattering the tense atmosphere. He continued to shoot, not as a warning, but with clear intent, demonstrating his ruthlessness. The thugs reacted with stunned disbelief, realizing their casual intimidation had provoked a deadly response. The braided thug clutched his head, reeling from the sudden, violent turn of events, completely caught off guard. Our boy's eyes glowed crimson, a clear sign that his demonic power had been unleashed, his friendly facade completely gone. He moved with brutal speed, savagely attacking the braided thug, ending the confrontation in a horrifying display of force. His partner crumpled to the ground, a victim of the swift and merciless assault, his life draining away. Our boy stood over the fallen thugs, the alley now silent save for the echoes of his violence, a testament to his lethal efficiency. From the shadows, two bird-like demons attracted by the bloodshed emerged, their beady eyes searching for the source of the commotion. The last thug, gravely wounded, looked up at our boy, his face a mix of fear and dawning horror. Our boy smiled down at him, his red eyes still glowing, offering a chilling question that implied a fate far worse than death. Vincent, a priest with a dark past, found himself tracking mysterious bird-like demons that had vanished into the night. He followed their fading energy, noting how swiftly the traces of their passage seemed to disappear. A faint, purplish glow lingered in the air, marking the last known location of the vanished entities. His sharp senses picked up the residual energy, confirming that a powerful entity had skillfully covered its tracks. Later, Vincent stood with Beatrice, a stern officer and a quiet nun, as he instructed the nun to ensure the child wore a protective strap. Vincent carried a simple burger bag, a small offering for the child he was protecting, as he prepared to leave for the night. Beatrice watched him with a mix of suspicion and concern, a silent question in her eyes about his true intentions. He offered her the bag, wondering if the donuts inside might be a small comfort after the day's chaos. Beatrice reacted with a startled expression, the unexpected gesture catching her off guard and unsettling her. Vincent remained stoic, his gaze unwavering as he observed her reaction, his own thoughts unreadable. The donuts lay scattered on the ground, a testament to Beatrice's sudden panicked departure. She fled in terror, her face a mask of utter fear, desperate to escape his presence. A small, distant figure, likely Beatrice, could be seen running far into the city, vanishing into the urban sprawl. The nun, however, calmly accepted a donut for the child, a quiet contrast to Beatrice's frantic exit. With the child by her side, the nun walked away, leaving Vincent alone to ponder the night's events. From above, Vincent watched them go, a solitary figure observing the quiet departure of his temporary charges. He then turned and walked towards a nondescript building, the night's true work still ahead of him. Approaching a worn door, he prepared to enter the place where he would confront the deeper mysteries. Inside, the nun and child settled into a modest room, finding a moment of peace after the day's turmoil. Our boy entered his own humble apartment, a stark, shabby space that reflected his solitary existence. He unwrapped a burger, a simple meal after a long and taxing day, his expression weary. Sitting at a bare table, he began to eat, his mind already turning to the puzzling events that had unfolded. The nun, meanwhile, questioned how the demons could have been so powerful, but the child knew it wasn't about strength. Vincent explained, holding a strange golden coin, that the priests had been helpless because their faith had vanished. He elaborated, his eyes dark, that without faith, a clergy member was merely an ordinary human, vulnerable to true evil. The image of a grand exorcism, a priest battling a fiery demon, flashed through his mind, highlighting the power now lost. The nun and child listened, their faces etched with confusion, struggling to grasp the gravity of his words. Vincent fixed his gaze on a skull on the table, a grim reminder of the spiritual war they were fighting. The child, speaking through the skull, scoffed at the idea of being threatened, calling it childish play in the face of their power. Vincent, unfazed by the demon's arrogance, merely hoped they would maintain their confident attitude. The nun watched him, her expression a mix of concern and a growing understanding of the dangerous path they were on. He subtly silenced her, a finger to his lips, indicating that a more serious confrontation was imminent. His eyes glowed with an eerie blue light, signaling that his true powers were stirring, ready for whatever came next. Suddenly, heavy knocks rattled his door, the sound echoing ominously in the small apartment. Vincent peered through the peephole, his gaze sharp and calculating, anticipating the visitor. Through the distorted lens, he saw a crow-like demon's mask, and a voice demanded he open the door, warning him not to spy. The door burst inward with a violent crash, splinters flying as the intruders forced their way in. Vincent was thrown backward by the impact, the sudden assault catching him off guard as the room filled with chaos. He recovered quickly, drawing a golden pistol and aiming it at the shadowy figures rushing into his home. Gunshots rang out as our boy fired relentlessly, but the crow-like demons swarmed him, their numbers overwhelming. He fought back with a brutal kick, trying to fend off one of the creatures, but they were relentless. In a quick succession of blows, Vincent saw the demon's mask approach, a chilling realization of his peril. A sharp blade, hidden within the demon's leg, extended with deadly precision. The demon struck, its sharp beak-like leg piercing deeply into Vincent's thigh. The blade twisted, inflicting a grievous wound, blood blooming crimson against his dark clothes. He cried out in pain, falling to the ground as the demon held him captive by the wounded leg. Another blow struck, this time through his chest, leaving a gaping, bloody hole as his life force drained away. The nun watched in horror from the background, unable to intervene as Vincent collapsed, seemingly defeated. She made a desperate move, throwing the child towards the demons, a last-ditch effort to save her. A massive crow-like demon snatched the child, its menacing form towering over the scene, declaring its return to hell. The monstrous creature flew off with the child, disappearing into the night sky, its foam glowing ominously. More of the bird-like demons followed, a flock of shadows vanishing into the darkness, carrying their captive away. They left behind only a fading trail of energy, a ghostly echo of their passage through the night. The nun stared at the shattered wall of the apartment, a silent testament to the violence that had just occurred. She turned to Vincent, her face filled with despair, seeing him bleeding profusely, his body broken. Despite his grave injuries, Vincent managed a grim, bloody smile, a hint of a plan still alive in his mind. With a painful grunt, he reached into a drawer, pulling out a small metallic device. He held the device, a receiver, confirming it still worked, a flicker of hope in his bleeding eyes. The nun watched him, realizing he had a contingency, a way to pursue the demons. A brief flashback showed the nun putting the protective strap on the child earlier, a critical detail now revealed. The strap, now glowing faintly on the child's arm, was clearly visible as the demon carried her away. Vincent's tracking device crackled to life, picking up the signal from the strap, confirming his deliberate foresight. The nun looked at him, a dawning understanding in her eyes, recognizing the depth of his calculated risk. He slammed his fist onto the skull, a surge of renewed determination, ready to fight on despite his wounds. Looking up, he saw a hidden passage opening in the ceiling, revealing a secret area above. Vincent stood in his hidden armory, surrounded by an array of weapons, ready to restock and pursue his stolen ward. Vincent, a renowned exorcist, carefully loaded the bullets into his gun, preparing for a mission that required his full focus. With a practiced hand, he clicked the magazine into place, the metallic sound echoing the gravity of his task. He secured the weapon at his hip, his movements precise and confident, a man accustomed to facing untold dangers alone. A cape draped over his shoulders, revealing a complex cross tattoo etched across his back, a silent testament to the great power he wielded. He adjusted his collar, his expression resolute as he faced the path ahead, ready for whatever awaited him. With a gentle touch, he placed the briefcase on a nearby surface, the contents within hinting at the specialized tools of his trade. He walked with a steady, determined stride, each step carrying him closer to the perilous situation he was about to enter. A nun, her face etched with worry, watched him leave, her concern evident in her posture. She offered him a warning, knowing the immense danger he was about to face. Vincent paused, turning slightly to acknowledge her, his expression unyielding. The nun, holding a gleaming holy dagger, reiterated her concern, reminding him of the risks of going alone. He simply looked at her, his gaze firm, unwavering in his decision. He understood her worry, but remained convinced that he was perfectly capable on his own. His conviction was clear. He believed his own strength was more than enough to handle what was to come. Later, driving through the night, the radio crackled softly, a lone source of light in the dim interior of his car. He drove in silence, his thoughts focused, the gravity of his mission weighing heavily on him. He arrived at a diner, the scene a devastating tableau of destruction and spilled blood. He stood at the entrance, his face partially obscured, a somber witness to the carnage. Two figures in eerie bird-like masks stood among the chaos, their presence chilling. He stepped further into the silent, blood-splattered diner, the extent of the massacre becoming terribly clear. His eyes scanned the devastation, taking in the full horror of what had transpired. The terrified waitress cowered behind the counter, her hands clasped in desperate prayer, witnessing the unfolding nightmare. At a booth, two men sat lifeless, their final moments frozen in silent terror. A man with dark, unruly hair, Lord Mill, casually drank from a cup, completely unfazed by the death surrounding him. A young girl, her face pale, peeked from behind a pillar, her wide eyes reflecting pure fear. Lord Mill's masked followers advanced, their footsteps echoing ominously across the checkered floor. Vincent looked down at one of the fallen, his expression grim, absorbing the senseless loss of life. The victim's face, frozen in a silent scream, spoke volumes of the brutality he had endured. Vincent's gaze hardened, a cold resolve settling over him as he processed the scene. Lord Mill's minions forced Vincent to his knees amidst the bodies, a cruel display of dominance. Mill reached out, his hand covering the face of a victim, a chilling gesture of possession. One of Mill's followers spoke, their voice filled with arrogance, questioning Vincent's past choices. Mill's masked figures surrounded Vincent, their collective menace a suffocating presence. Vincent clenched his fists, a low rumble of power emanating from him as he prepared to fight. Mill's followers lunged, their clawed hands reaching, ready to strike. Vincent's face contorted with rage, his power flaring brightly around him. The big man flinched, a tremor of fear running through him as Vincent's power erupted. The waitress watched in wide-eyed horror, witnessing the raw, terrifying power unleashed. Her gasp was almost silent, overwhelmed by the sudden, violent outburst. Mill's minions recoiled, their forms momentarily disrupted by the sheer force of Vincent's attack. Vincent swung his arm, the rosary wrapped around his hand glowing with holy light, striking one of the masked figures. The impact sent the minion flying, crashing against the far wall with a sickening thud. Vincent stood over the fallen foe, his eyes glowing with an ethereal blue light, his power fully unleashed. He asserted his dominance, reminding Mill that he was the one who had allowed him to live before. Mill's minions transformed, their bodies contorting with a grotesque cracking sound, revealing their true, monstrous forms. Mill's transformed creatures moved with terrifying speed, their attacks swift and deadly. Vincent met their charge head-on, his glowing fist connecting with one of the monsters with immense force. The creature recoiled from the blow, blood splattering from its beak-like face. Vincent dodged a sweeping attack, his movements fluid and precise, narrowly avoiding a fatal strike. One of the creatures taunted him, underestimating his human strength. Vincent's power surged, blood dripping from the rosary in his hand as he retaliated with renewed fury. He unleashed a powerful blast, tearing through the creature with devastating force. He stood triumphant over the mangled form of his enemy, his gaze unwavering. Mill's remaining creature thrashed, its body twisting into a horrifying serpentine mass. Mill, now fully transformed, faced Vincent, his eyes burning with malevolent intent. Vincent charged, his rosary glowing, ready to confront the monstrous demon directly. He landed another powerful blow, the force of his attack creating a blinding flash of light. The waitress screamed, clutching her head as the cacophony of the battle intensified around her. Mill, his hand tightening around the rosary, declared that Vincent's actions only made him an easier target. Lord Mill's eyes glowed crimson, his expression one of chilling rage as he prepared his own counterattack. The waitress trembled, the terror of the moment overwhelming her as she watched the demon's menacing approach. Mill, his monstrous form looming, advanced on Vincent, ready to unleash his full power. What happens next changes everything. Vincent Burns, a demonologist, walked into a diner, finding a hulking figure and a young girl already seated. The large man offered him coffee, but Vincent calmly declared he would pay for it himself. There was a quiet intensity about Vincent, a man who seemed to carry the weight of unseen battles. His opponent, a broad-shouldered man with a wild mane of hair, simply grinned back. Despite the tension, the diner scene continued, the waitress serving coffee to their unlikely gathering. Vincent's gaze was firm as he spoke, his words carrying an unspoken command for the others to leave. His primary concern was the girl's safety, a fragile innocence he felt compelled to protect. Before she left, the young girl looked up at him, a simple question on her lips. Vincent held his coffee cup, his expression unreadable as he returned his attention to the man across from him. The muscular man watched him with a predatory amusement, his smile never faltering. He introduced himself as Vincent Burns, clarifying he was a demonologist, not a priest. The demon, however, saw past the cassock, recognizing a rare fire in Vincent's eyes, the unmistakable gaze of a predator. Vincent's eyes held a steady blue, focused and unyielding, like a Doberman standing guard. The demon made an offer, suggesting Vincent leave America before it descended into chaos. Vincent listened, his expression unchanged, as the demon spoke of an impending apocalypse. He dismissed the idea, knowing that merely fleeing wouldn't solve the larger, looming threat. Vincent believed their best course was to confront the demon's plans head-on, right here and now. He insisted on paying for his own coffee, explaining his aversion to being indebted to filthy sources. The demon's smirk widened, challenging Vincent to produce his payment. With a flick of his wrist, Vincent sent a simple dollar coin spinning into the air. The coin descended, landing squarely in his hand, a symbol of his trade. Vincent explained that this was the money he earned, hunting demons just like him. The demon's true nature began to show, his eyes glowing with an infernal red as his grin stretched wide. He confessed his true desire, not a chat but a fight, a chance to test his power. Vincent didn't hesitate, drawing a pistol and firing multiple shots directly into the demon's chest. The demon recoiled, blood blooming across his shirt, a look of genuine surprise on his face. Vincent kept his weapon steady, his gaze steady as he watched the demon's reaction. The demon accused Vincent of being underhanded, a tactic he hadn't expected. A final, precise shot struck the demon's head, an impact that should have been fatal. Vincent remained calm, his expression betraying no shock at the demon's resilience. The young girl, now safely escorted away, looked back, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and wonder. Vincent had made sure she was out of harm's way, a quiet promise in his actions. His helper, witnessing the demon's impossible survival, could only stare in disbelief. The demon's wounds glowed, a strange energy pulsating as he began to heal himself. His face contorted with pain and fury, golden cracks appearing on his skin as he absorbed the strange bullets. Vincent aimed his pistol again, preparing for the next volley of shots. Outside, the demon's car exploded, a clear sign of the escalating conflict. Vincent emerged from the wreckage, seemingly unharmed, his resolve unbroken. The demon stood defiant, his chest still glowing, his body radiating immense power. He charged forward, a blur of raw power, intent on overwhelming his opponent. Vincent continued to fire, the bullets striking the demon, but having little effect. With incredible agility, Vincent dodged the demon's powerful strike, the impact shaking the ground. He moved with lethal precision, drawing a concealed blade from his sleeve. This was his true weapon, a stark contrast to the firearms he had used before. With a swift motion, he brought the blade down, severing the demon's hand. The demon roared in pain, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and disbelief. Vincent followed up with a powerful punch, his fist glowing with an eerie light. He pressed his advantage, unleashing a flurry of attacks that burned with a holy energy. The demon's face contorted, a dawning realization in his eyes about Vincent's true capabilities. Vincent stood firm, his blade held ready, blood staining his hand as proof of his effectiveness. This was the weapon designed to defeat creatures like him, a tool of pure exorcism. He struck again, the blade tearing through the demon's flesh with a searing force. Vincent moved with brutal efficiency, driving his blade deep into the demon's chest. The effort was immense, etched onto Vincent's face, but his determination remained strong. The demon staggered back, a guttural cry escaping his lips as the sacred weapon burned him. Vincent seized the demon's head, his grip unyielding, forcing him to endure the pain. A powerful energy surged from Vincent's hands, flowing into the demon, consuming him from within. He unleashed a blinding burst of power, intending to cleanse the demon with sheer force. An enormous explosion rocked the area, a testament to the raw power Vincent channeled. Yet, through the flames, the demon's eye still burned red, his form barely holding together. His body was a crucible of pain and rebirth, glowing with an unholy light. Vincent declared that even this immense power wouldn't be enough to truly end his opponent. The demon was thrown backward, shattering the ground, but still alive and defiant. He collapsed onto the checkerboard floor, smoke rising from his scorched form, a momentary defeat. But it was only momentary. The demon began to rise again, his body flickering with healing power. He stood amidst the destruction, his form renewed, a terrifying testament to his survival. Vincent, however, had another plan, another weapon. The demon smirked, confident in his great power, unaware of what was coming next. Vincent revealed his final answer, a massive, glowing blue cannon unlike any pistol. With a roar, he unleashed the cannon's full power, a blast of pure, concentrated energy. The demon was instantly engulfed. consumed by a blinding inferno of light and force. The explosion ripped through the air, leaving nothing but a vast, burning crater. A stunned silence fell over the devastated landscape, the sheer power of the blast lingering in the air. This was the ultimate test, and nobody knew if it was enough. The real storm hadn't hit yet. Vincent, a battle-hardened man, wielded his divine cannon, preparing a devastating attack against a formidable demon. He channeled immense power into the weapon, its glow intensifying as his determination hardened. With a resounding kwang, the cannon unleashed a blinding blast of energy, tearing through the air towards his foe. The demon reeled from the direct hit, the powerful impact causing its form to ripple with pain and distortion. Its body began to convulse, its previous disguise visibly melting away under the force of the holy energy. Smoke billowed from the demon's back as it struggled to maintain its shape, revealing a more monstrous silhouette. Vincent watched, his expression unreadable, as the demon underwent a terrifying transformation before his eyes. The demon, its face now a gnarled, glowing visage, taunted him, claiming he had faced others of his kind before. Its human facade continued to crumble, revealing a grotesque, fiery skull-like head as its true nature surfaced. With a final, agonizing PAAT, the demon shed its skin, its true form fully emerging from the ruins of its previous body. A horned, armored figure now stood where the demon had been, its head wreathed in a crown of pure flame. Vincent, ever calm, asked if this terrifying new appearance was the demon's true form, a hint of respect in his voice. The armored demon warned him against using his weapon, its presence radiating an ancient, unyielding power. It then explained that in this form, blood hotter than hellfire surged through its veins, making it incredibly dangerous. A small, white-haired girl, the keeper of the key, watched the exchange with wide, fearful eyes, her innocence a stark contrast to the battle. Vincent, understanding the unspoken threat to the girl and the key, maintained his stoic gaze, a silent promise of protection. He slowly put away his cannon, acknowledging the demon's warning and choosing a different path for the remainder of their confrontation. The demon, now an imposing figure, declared that their paths would cross again as long as the mystical key existed. Its armored form glowed with an internal fire, preparing to depart with a grand display of its power. The demon then began to dissipate into a trail of fiery energy, leaving the battlefield in a dramatic exit. With a mighty puii-hing, it transformed into a magnificent flaming horse, galloping away into the burning distance. The fiery steed vanished, leaving Vincent alone amidst the smoldering wreckage of their intense battle. Vincent stood amidst the dying flames, exhausted but resolute, the weight of the ongoing conflict heavy on his shoulders. The demon's departure marked the end of another skirmish, but the larger war over the key was far from over. Meanwhile, in a stark contrast to the fiery battle, Deputy Chloe arrived at work with a cheerful, "Good morning." The sheriff's office buzzed with activity, phones ringing incessantly, indicating a particularly chaotic start to the day. Chloe's colleague, Camila, greeted her with a question about the morning's heavy workload. Camila then playfully asked Chloe if she felt lucky, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Chloe's friend smiled, her expression hinting at a deeper, more personal meaning behind her words. With a teasing smirk and hearts floating around her, Camila jokingly suggested they should abandon their duties and run away together. Chloe's eyes widened in surprise, taken aback by Camilla's bold and unexpected proposition. Her mind drifted to the reason for Camilla's strange mood, recalling a previous conversation about finding a soulmate. Chloe's heart sank as she discovered Vincent, heavily scarred, confined within one of the station's holding cells. Camila, seeing Vincent for the first time, gasped in shock and confusion, realizing the identity of Chloe's arson suspect. Chloe rushed to the cell, calling out Vincent's name, her voice filled with a mix of concern and alarm. She frantically questioned him about his involvement in the widespread arson cases, her mind racing with implications. Vincent, unfazed by his predicament, casually stated that such incidents happen often in his line of work. Chloe, remembering her assignment, sternly reminded him that he shouldn't be there, as she was tasked with monitoring him. She quickly tried to release him, urging him to escape before the sheriff could arrive and complicate matters further. Just as she was about to act, the sheriff and Camila appeared, catching Chloe in the act, much to her dismay. Chloe stammered, Acknowledging the sheriff's unexpected arrival, her plan to free Vincent instantly ruined. The sheriff sternly asked Chloe why Vincent, the man she was assigned to, was present at the crime scene. He then demanded a full explanation of everything that had transpired during her assignment. Chloe's mind raced, her single eye narrowing in thought, weighing her options in this impossible situation. She knew that if Vincent resorted to force, the damage to the station would be catastrophic, making her decision even harder. Chloe decided to trust in the sheriff she had worked with for so long, hoping her honesty would prevail. Camila, utterly bewildered, questioned Chloe's outlandish claims about Vincent not killing people but catching demons. The sheriff, clearly disbelieving, sarcastically asked if Chloe had joined some strange cult. He then ordered Camila to arrest Chloe as well, convinced of a conspiracy between the two. Chloe was aghast, realizing that after her ideal type, now her best friend was also being implicated in the chaos. Vincent, observing the unfolding drama, remained calm, noting that they had, at least, bought some precious time. A mysterious man in a trench coat arrived, competently declaring that Vincent Burns was neither a murderer nor an arsonist. The sheriff, taken aback by the stranger's sudden appearance, demanded to know his identity. The man presented an FBI badge, instantly commanding attention and authority. The badge identified him as Malcolm R. Thatcher, a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Vincent simply acknowledged the agent's presence with a quiet nod, no surprise in his demeanor. The agent made a dry comment about Vincent's impressive physique, noting that his clothes wouldn't fit that build anyway. Malcolm then casually mentioned that they would need to get Vincent some new, custom-tailored clothes. The sheriff, still reeling, expressed his disbelief that this man was an FBI agent. Vincent, looking at Malcolm, understood the deeper implications of his presence. Malcolm then bluntly stated that they couldn't leave the world's future entirely in the hands of a fraud like Vincent. Chloe gasped, utterly confused, realizing the agent was from the Vatican, not just the FBI. Malcolm cast a dismissive glance at Chloe, clearly unconcerned with her surprise. Vincent, however, reassured Chloe, stating that the sheriff could be trusted in this unusual situation. Malcolm, seeking discretion, suggested they move their conversation to a more private location away from the station's front. He then extended an invitation to Chloe, offering her a job that he believed she was uniquely suited for. Meanwhile, in a luxurious mansion, a disheveled figure named Mill burst in, announcing his return. Mill, looking roughed up, loudly proclaimed his arrival to the other occupants. Abi, a woman in an elegant red dress, calmly chastised Mill for his boisterous entrance, reminding him they could all hear him. Another figure, the leader, looked up from his newspaper, questioning why Mill had returned empty-handed. Mill, clearly embarrassed, offered a flimsy excuse about a priest blocking his path, forcing him to give up. Abi corrected him, realizing it wasn't just a priest, but a demonologist who had thwarted Mill's efforts. A look of dawning concern crossed Abi's face as she wondered if the priest could be him, their formidable adversary. The leader, adjusting his glasses, confirmed it was indeed the human they had discussed in their plan. His eye glowed with an ominous light as he chastised Mill for ignoring his explicit warning not to engage Vincent in a direct fight. The leader described Vincent as an ordinary human, someone who should have easily fallen to even a single demon. But one fateful incident, a chance occurrence in his past, had transformed Vincent into an avatar of pure hatred. Vincent, the diligent village handyman, worked tirelessly to repair the broken fence. He paused, wiping his brow, surveying his work with a tired but satisfied expression. Soon after, our boy walked into his charming home, carrying his bag after a long day. Inside, his wife Evelyn stretched in bed, enjoying the morning light as he watched her. He greeted her, and she smiled warmly back at him, a familiar comfort. Evelyn Burns, a woman of many talents, was a scientist, teacher, and his beloved wife. She purred contentedly, reaching out to touch his face, a gesture of deep affection. Evelyn sat at the table, taking a bite of her breakfast, observing her husband with a hint of concern. He questioned why she hadn't used the special tool he had made just for her. She admitted the fence pile driver, a device she herself had developed, had malfunctioned last time. Our handyman had warned her it looked too heavy, but Evelyn insisted a delicate beauty like her could handle it alone. The memory of the device exploding in the field, sending debris flying, still made her wince. He had rushed to her side, shouting her name as the pile driver continued to cause trouble. Back in the present, Evelyn looked slightly embarrassed, admitting she hadn't fixed it yet. He picked up the broken tool, a small sigh escaping him, understanding her predicament. He returned to the kitchen, preparing their meal while his wife watched him, a quiet moment between them. She smiled, acknowledging his busy schedule, from inventions to teaching children and even research. Our boy, ever dedicated, reaffirmed his commitment to all his roles, finding joy in each one. He asked if she wanted him to reduce his workload, but Evelyn simply smiled, knowing his passion. She held her cup, her expression a mix of admiration and quiet worry for his relentless drive. He explained that his creative ideas were too precious to waste, and the Research Institute was merely consulting. His wife listened, understanding his ambition, but her gaze held a deeper, unspoken concern. She reminded him that they were going to be parents soon, and his overworking wasn't good for the baby either. Our boy, momentarily stunned by the weight of her words, offered to give her a ride to school. She declined, preferring to drive herself, perhaps needing a moment of her own. He watched her walk away, a thoughtful expression on his face, internalizing her words. He sighed, frustrated with himself for not talking more nicely, for letting his passion overshadow her worries. Evelyn, sensing his regret, turned back, a soft smile on her face, reassuring him. She leaned in, a tender moment shared between them, confirming their deep connection. With a quick kiss, she was gone, leaving him alone with his thoughts. He lifted her into a warm embrace, a silent promise to cherish their future together. The sky darkened suddenly, a fierce storm brewing, signaling a rapid shift in the peaceful day. In the city, a man in a hooded cloak looked up at the torrential rain, concern etched on his face. Another figure warned him that the countryside would be swept away by the water, too dangerous to travel. The man, resolute in his decision, knew there was no other driver to be found, and he had to go. He paused, his determination unwavering despite the dire warnings of flooding. Back home, our boy discovered Evelyn in bed, writhing in sudden, agonizing pain. She cried out, clutching her stomach, her face contorted in distress, a terrifying sight. He, desperate, tried to administer emergency medicine, but it seemed to have no effect. Our hero rushed to his car, but the engine wouldn't turn over, leaving him stranded and helpless. The phone lines were dead due to the storm, cutting off any hope of calling for help. He realized with a sickening lurch that both cars were useless, and carrying her through the downpour was impossible. Outside, a horrifying sight unfolded as a cow was violently struck and killed, its blood splattering. Another cow fell, lifeless, the storm's destructive power indiscriminately taking lives. The carnage continued, a third animal brutally dispatched, painting the field in a grim red. The rain poured down, washing over the dead animals, a chilling testament to the storm's fury. More cows lay dead, scattered across the field, their bodies broken, a scene of utter devastation. Suddenly, a blinding flash of lightning struck their house, illuminating the dark, stormy night. Our boy, startled and terrified, looked up, realizing the immense danger they were in. He grabbed a lantern, its dim light piercing the darkness as he moved cautiously through the house. He found Evelyn sitting up, her expression calm, too calm, her eyes wide and unnerving. She declared she felt really refreshing, a strange statement given her earlier agony. A chilling transformation began as her joints cracked, her skin darkened, and her eyes glowed ominously. Our boy stared in horror, utterly speechless at the monstrous change before him. He stumbled back, still holding the lantern, unable to comprehend what was happening to his wife. The transformed Evelyn lunged at him, her eyes glowing with an unholy light, a terrifying predator. The lantern shattered, exploding into pieces, plunging them further into darkness and chaos. He struggled against her, trying to push her away, but her strength was immense, the room now engulfed in flames. She choked him, her grip like iron, his face contorted in pain and disbelief. The shadowy figure, now fully revealed, stared at him with burning yellow eyes, no longer resembling his beloved Evelyn. Our boy, gasping for air, demanded to know who she was, his voice filled with terror. The creature raised a hand, a ring on her finger glowing with an eerie light, a symbol of her power. He screamed in anguish, desperately trying to understand what had happened to his wife, his world crumbling. She flung him across the burning room with ease, his body hitting the wall with a sickening thud. The creature, observing his struggle, remarked on his deep love for his wife, a cruel twist of emotion. She touched her face, her glowing eyes fixed on him, a chilling smile playing on her lips. The creature's fingers traced lines down her face, leaving trails of crimson, a horrifying display. Blood streamed from her eyes, a grotesque parody of tears, confirming her true, terrifying nature. Our boy, horrified, tried to get up, desperate to fight, despite the overwhelming odds. She watched him, a silent, menacing presence, her power radiating through the burning room. He pleaded, demanding to know what she wanted from him, his voice raw with fear and desperation. The entity simply declared obedience, demanding he become her servant, leaving him trapped in a nightmare. Great Judge Abjay prepared for a crucial journey, his domain a fiery landscape of jagged peaks and molten rivers, the very essence of hell. His grotesque army of demons awaited his command, their varied forms a testament to the horrors of their realm, eager for conquest. The imposing skeletal figure of Great Judge Abjay stood tall, his presence radiating an ancient and chilling power, ready to lead. A long, dark silhouette, Abjay's form was a stark contrast against the burning horizon, emphasizing his solitary and immense power. From a jagged peak, a single small figure overlooked the vast infernal landscape, a silent sentinel in the heart of his dominion. A blinding burst of light erupted from the peak, signaling the beginning of a powerful, world-altering event as the demon judge began his work. A colossal column of energy descended from the sky, tearing open a gateway between realms, ready to unleash the forces of hell. Great Judge Abjay recounted his past failure years ago when he first ventured to Earth with a plan to establish an invasion. He had attempted to possess a nation's leader, but to his utter disbelief, found himself trapped inside a woman living in the quiet countryside. This unexpected turn of events was utterly ridiculous, leaving a powerful Lord of Hell weakened and unable to even properly steal a single human body. His accompanying subordinates had scattered everywhere, a clear sign that someone from above had inexplicably interfered with his grand design. It was then that he realized to truly claim Earth, he would need to find and control a special key to unlock its ultimate defenses. A man, Vincent Burns, stood in a burning house, desperately confronting a shadowy figure, demanding to know what it wanted from him. The shadowy entity, Great Judge Abe, in his possessed form, simply reached out, ready to make a chilling proposition. Burns was given a choice: face certain death in this fiery inferno, or accept a special opportunity to return to his past. Abjay offered him a special chance, a way to reclaim the life he once had, to return to the loving embrace of his family. Burns turned his back, considering the impossible choice before him, the weight of his burning world heavy on his shoulders. He looked directly at Abij, his expression resolute as he stated his understanding, but with one crucial condition. Burns insisted that Abjay must keep his promise to return his wife, Evelyn, to normal, a vow that held more importance than anything else. Abjay observed Burns, finding satisfaction in his choice, seeing a new servant ready to be forged into his hands and feet. Burns collapsed to his knees, a wave of agony washing over him as the contract began to bind him to the demon lord. Abjay declared his terms. Burns would now follow his orders, hunting down the scattered demons across Earth, his new purpose set. With a swift motion, Abjay bound Burns' soul, imbuing him with dark abilities, sealing their terrifying contract. Evelyn, still possessed by a demon, began to stir, her true self attempting to break through the demon's control with a desperate warning. She cried out to Burns, her voice filled with anguish, urging him not to go too far down this path, to resist the demon's will. Burns, kneeling on the ground, felt Evelyn's pain and the truth in her words, his mind reeling from the implications. He looked up, a terrible realization dawning on him as Evelyn's desperate plea echoed in his ears, shaking him to his core. Evelyn continued her warning, explaining that when demons finished their contracts, they would always claim the contractor's soul. The possessed Evelyn struggled, a dark shadow manifesting from her form, trying to physically stop the unfolding pact. She insisted that this path was not for Burns, not for them. pleading with him to understand the grave danger he was in. Evelyn, her face contorted with pain and love, begged Burns to let her go like this to save himself from this terrible fate. Abjay, enraged by Evelyn's resistance and interference, found her actions utterly ridiculous, a mere glitch in his grand plan. He looked down at Evelyn, furious that an incomplete vessel could dare to challenge his will, threatening to lose control midway. Abjay's form began to warp, his true monstrous nature threatening to break free as he glared at Evelyn, demanding her silence. Burns, seeing Evelyn's suffering and Abjay's cruelty, ignited with a new kind of fury, refusing to stand by any longer. He stood firm, his eyes locked on Abj, no longer a pawn but a man ready to fight for what truly mattered. Abjay, still in his human guise, questioned Burns's resolve, surprised by his sudden defiance. Burns, his face now etched with pain and anger, accused Abjay, reminding him that his actions had already killed their child. Abjay simply looked on, unperturbed, offering Burns one last chance to reconsider his foolish rebellion. With a chilling smile, Abjay suggested that if Burns just saved his wife, he could always have another child, displaying his utter lack of empathy. Burns gritted his teeth, the demon's callous words fueling his rage, pushing him beyond the brink of human endurance. He lunged forward, his body now infused with a strange, dark power, ready to strike down the demon who had taken so much from him. With a powerful blow, Burns struck Abby, the impact echoing through the burning room as their battle truly began. Burns continued his assault, each strike imbued with his desperate love and fury, refusing to yield to the demon's might. He brought his weapon down with immense force, the sound of splintering and shattering filling the air as he channeled his inner strength. Evelyn collapsed in the background, the intense struggle taking its toll on her possessed form, a silent casualty of the escalating conflict. Burns stood panting, his face scarred, yet determined, having delivered a significant blow to the demon lord. Abjay, seemingly defeated, lay on the ground, his true form beginning to emerge from the weakened human shell. Burns looked down, his eyes narrowed, understanding that this was far from over, the true nature of his enemy finally revealing itself. He dropped his weapon, preparing for the next phase of the fight, knowing that conventional tools would no longer suffice. Burns advanced on Abjay, his steps deliberate and heavy, ready to face the demon in its full terrifying glory. Abjay, still on the ground, began to transform, his shadowy essence spreading, preparing for a counterattack. Burns watched, his gaze unwavering, as Abjay's monstrous form continued to take shape, becoming a creature of pure darkness. Abjay unleashed a blast of dark energy, a desperate attempt to overwhelm Burns with his infernal power. Burns stood his ground, channeling his own newfound strength, deflecting the attack with a powerful, radiant shield. The clash of powers sent shockwaves through the burning house, a testament to the raw force being unleashed. Abjay revealed the source of a demon's strength, stating they were objects of fear, thriving on the helplessness of humans. He explained that human fear stemmed from their inability to resist the overwhelming power of the demonic. Burns, however, stood tall amidst the flames, his resolve unbroken, embodying the very resistance Abjay spoke of. Abjay realized that an existence capable of such defiance could not be feared, and thus could not fuel a demon's power. Burns declared that he would never again plan to meet his family, his grim determination sealing his new, terrifying path. He vowed to go to hell itself, if that was what it took to protect those he loved, a chilling promise of ultimate sacrifice. His entire being radiated an overwhelming power, a defiant aura that defied the very essence of demonic fear. With a final, decisive strike, Burns obliterated Abjay's monstrous form, leaving only a small, slithering creature in its place. The rain began to fall, extinguishing the flames and washing away the blood as Burns stood victorious over the defeated demon. Evelyn lay lifeless on the ground, the demonic influence purged, but her body a husk of its former self. Burns cradled his wife, tears mingling with the rain, his victory a hollow one in the face of such profound loss. A mysterious hooded figure appeared, offering Burns a new perspective, suggesting he leave his life to heaven rather than throwing it away. The hooded figure observed Burns, noting his natural talent for catching demons, hinting at a new destiny. Much later, a suited man, a demonologist, reflected on meeting Burns again, observing how much he had changed. He noted that Burns had become even more venomous than before, a force beyond simple help. The demonologist warned his subordinates to never let their guard down, for Burns was likely already devising ways to hunt them. He speculated that Burns might have already completed his preparations, ready to unleash his vengeance upon the demonic world. Another powerful figure, a woman in a striking red dress, was told that it was now her turn to act. A high-ranking demon ordered his troops to gather, preparing to reclaim the crucial key that Burns now possessed. The stage was set for a new conflict, as the forces of hell moved to confront the man who dared to defy them, and the key he held would change everything. Vincent, a priest with a stern demeanor, found himself laden with an absurd amount of new clothes for a mysterious young girl. Chloe, a capable police officer, couldn't help but question the sheer volume of garments they were purchasing for someone so young. He simply shrugged, understanding that a life of constant battles meant a constant need for new attire. The young, white-haired girl walked beside him, a silent presence in their busy day. She had no shoes, no proper clothing, a stark reminder of her recent, traumatic past. He paused, a deep contemplation settling over him as he considered her future. The day had been a whirlwind of errands, taking them from one establishment to another. Inside a new clothing store, the group had gathered, Burns now among them, observing the scene. Vincent found himself drawn to a small pair of baby shoes, a tender thought crossing his mind. He held the tiny shoe in his hand, a soft, expectant gaze in his eyes. Chloe, ever the practical one, held up a shirt with a skull design, prompting a reaction from him. He looked genuinely taken aback by her choice, a hint of exasperation on his face. The store was filled with various patrons, each going about their shopping, oblivious to the unique dynamic unfolding. He allowed a small, knowing smirk to play on his lips, recognizing the situation for what it was. Burns, ever the stylish one, adjusted his tie with a flourish, his gaze fixed on Vincent. He had a casual way of speaking, often omitting formal titles, much to Vincent's quiet annoyance. Vincent, still holding the small shoe, knew the girl didn't even have a name yet. He decided to name her, and the word Taylor came to mind, a subtle nod to their current surroundings. Later, at home, Vincent was surrounded by an assortment of baby items, a domestic scene far removed from his usual duties. A warm memory surfaced, of a time when he had shared such joyous preparations with someone dear to him. He felt a pang of nostalgia, a reminder of the simple happiness that once filled his life. Burns, observing his contemplative state, questioned his seemingly random choice of name. He was clearly irked by Vincent's casual approach to such an important decision. The young girl, now adorned in a simple red dress, stood with her arms wide, a picture of innocence. Vincent gently sprayed a mist around her, a small gesture of care and attention. He adjusted her hair, a tender touch, and spoke her new name aloud, Taylor. Chloe watched the interaction, a flicker of surprise and perhaps even admiration in her eyes. Back in the car, Chloe's annoyance had returned as she spoke with Burns. Burns listened intently, his expression unreadable as the conversation turned to more serious matters. She voiced her frustration, questioning the sudden and unexpected changes to her professional life. The bustling city outside continued its rhythm, a stark contrast to the tense discussion within the vehicle. Life flowed on, unaware of the complex negotiations happening in the quiet confines of their car. Everyday scenes passed by, each moment a testament to the world they were trying to protect. Chloe was still hesitant about the new arrangement, expressing her concerns about Burns's reputation. She let out a small laugh, firmly declining the offer to work more closely with him. Her smile faltered as a sudden realization dawned on her, a chilling thought taking root. Burns had already taken action, sending official documents to the station, framing their collaboration as a joint investigation. She couldn't believe his audacity, realizing he had orchestrated the entire situation without her consent. Her frustration boiled over, demanding to know why he had made such a decision without consulting her. The radio crackled to life, interrupting their heated exchange with an urgent, distorted message. She immediately understood the gravity of the situation, her expression shifting from anger to grave concern. They both listened closely as the static cleared, revealing the details of a serious incident. He confirmed his identity as FBI, a detail that now seemed to justify his prior actions. His casual demeanor vanished, replaced by a focused intensity as he processed the information. A chilling silence enveloped the air, a premonition of the terror awaiting them. The true nature of the threat became clear. It was a demonic presence, a force beyond ordinary law enforcement. He hardened his resolve, preparing himself for the supernatural battle that lay ahead. Chloe arrived at Sandstone Ranch High School, the scene of the incident, her gaze sweeping over the ominous building. She debriefed with a fellow officer, trying to ascertain the exact nature of the situation inside. The police force had gathered, their faces etched with concern as they prepared for entry. Communication with the teams that had already entered the school had been completely lost. No gunshots were heard, no distress calls, just an eerie, unsettling quiet from within. Chloe, taking the lead, walked towards the entrance with two other officers, their footsteps echoing the tension. The building seemed to swallow sound, an unsettling void where chaos should have been. She gripped her weapon tightly, her resolve firm despite the growing sense of dread. With a deep breath, she pushed open the heavy door, revealing the darkness within. They stepped inside, greeted by an unnaturally bright, almost blinding light that filled the hallway. The light was disorienting, making it difficult to discern their surroundings, an unsettling trick of perception. She pressed forward, her senses on high alert, navigating the strange, silent corridors. She exchanged a silent nod with her partner, a mutual understanding of the bizarre circumstances. She cautiously peeked around a corner, her weapon ready, anticipating an unknown threat. Her eyes narrowed, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement, any hint of what lay ahead. What she found defied all reason. A fellow officer, grotesquely impaled on a pole, bathed in an eerie purple glow. A wave of horror washed over her, the gruesome sight chilling her to the bone. The officer's face was replaced by a disturbing, grinning mask, a twisted symbol of the psychopath responsible. What truly awaited them in this school was far more sinister than any ordinary criminal. Ethan, a bored student, found himself in a classroom, idly drawing as a police officer gave a lecture. The officer, earnest and stern, delivered a lesson on avoiding the wrong paths in life. Ethan, however, was more interested in sketching, his attention far from the anti-drug message. He drew a caricature of the officer, adding notes about memory decline and poor academic performance. With a quick flick of his eraser, the drawing transformed. The friendly officer was replaced by a menacing demon, its fangs sharp and eyes glowing. Diego, his friend, chuckled beside him, clearly amused by Ethan's artistic rebellion. Their quiet amusement was shattered when the officer, noticing their antics, pointed a finger directly at them. Both boys looked up, their expressions a mix of surprise and a hint of defiance. Ethan's pencil tapped against the desk, a small, rhythmic sound in the sudden silence. The officer admonished them, declaring that delinquent kids like them were persons of interest. Ethan just stared back, a silent challenge in his eyes, not responding to the accusation. The officer continued, pressing them about any connections to local gangs like the Red Faction. Without a word, the two friends abruptly rose from their seats, a silent act of defiance. The officer watched them go, a look of shocked disbelief on his face as they walked out. He called out, demanding to know where they thought they were going. Diego, however, merely stuck out his tongue and made a mocking gesture as they disappeared. The officer could only watch as the two boys hurried away, leaving the classroom behind. Soon after, the two boys found themselves sitting on the school rooftop, the city sprawling below them. Diego looked pensive, while Ethan stared out, a quiet seriousness settling over him. Ethan gazed at the distant buildings, a profound stillness in his posture. Diego then broke the silence, asking if Ethan's father was involved with the Red Faction. Ethan looked down, a shadow passing over his face as he quietly stated his father was no longer around. Diego quickly changed the subject, reminding Ethan of their childhood pact to become heroes. He held up a crumpled drawing, a faded sketch from their elementary school days. The drawing depicted Diego as a vibrant sidekick, bursting with energy and a thumbs up. Next to it, his own drawing showed Ethan as a powerful hero, ready to face any challenge. Ethan looked genuinely surprised, as if he had completely forgotten their ambitious childhood dream. He pulled out a pen, deciding to update their old hero designs with new details. A mischievous smile played on Ethan's lips as he began to sketch. lost in the new creative process. His eyes then darted upwards, catching sight of something unusual in the schoolyard below. Below them, a woman in a flowing red dress strolled across the lush green lawn, holding an elegant umbrella. She looked graceful and refined, her smile radiating an old-world charm that seemed out of place. But in a blink, her image warped into a chilling scarecrow, its features stark and terrifying. The figure stood eerily still, a stark contrast to the peaceful surroundings, yet deeply unsettling. And then, just as quickly, she was back, offering a knowing wink, as if nothing had happened. Ethan flinched, a shiver running down his spine, unsure of what he had truly witnessed. He turned to Diego, a confused look on his face, trying to make sense of the strange apparition. Diego, however, only saw Ethan, wondering why he was the only one there. The thought of a cursed doll slashing everyone in school filled Ethan with dread, a story come to life. He quickly scrambled down the ladder, urging Diego to follow him to safety, away from the strange woman. Back in the classroom, the lights flickered out, plunging everyone into darkness and murmurs. The officer, taking charge, stepped out into the hallway to investigate the sudden power outage. One student looked particularly unnerved, her eyes wide with apprehension in the dim light. Another girl turned around, her face etched with a mix of fear and curiosity about the darkness. The officer walked slowly, his footsteps echoing in the dim, silent corridor, a sense of unease growing. He maintained a brave front, his gaze fixed ahead as he moved deeper into the shadows. He rounded a corner, the darkness ahead seeming to deepen, hiding whatever lay beyond. There, a horrifying sight awaited him. Pink goo and scattered clothing stained the floor. His eye caught a strange reflection in the darkness, a chilling detail amidst the eerie silence. Standing at the end of the hall was the grotesque scarecrow, its scythe ready, a silent sentinel of dread. He knelt down, cautiously reaching out to examine the strange, pink substance on the floor. In his hand, the goo felt sticky and unsettling, leaving him utterly confused by its origin. Unbeknownst to him, the scarecrow loomed directly above, a silent, deadly threat in the shadows. He looked up, a dawning horror spreading across his face as he finally saw the terrifying figure. The scarecrow's stitched face stared back, a blank, terrifying smile fixed upon it. Its mouth ripped open, revealing a mass of writhing, tentacle-like growths within, an unnatural horror. The officer stumbled back, a scream caught in his throat as the pink goo erupted around him. He turned and ran, desperate to escape the monstrous figure, but it was already too late. But the goo had already touched him, seeping into his skin, an insidious corruption. His face began to distort, melting into the same pink substance, his humanity dissolving. In moments, he was completely engulfed, his body dissolving into the viscous pink mass. All that remained was a pile of goo, topped by his glasses, a grim testament to his fate. A female officer then arrived, her eyes widening in shock at the grotesque scene before her. She saw the scarecrow standing triumphantly over what was left of her colleague. With two other officers, she clutched a bag containing the glasses, realizing the true horror that now stood behind them. Ethan, a young man, found himself and his schoolmates in a dark, silent hallway, the power having mysteriously vanished. A deep unease settled over the group as they stood together, sharing anxious glances and the unspoken question of what had happened. Suddenly, a man burst into view, sprinting down the corridor with a desperate, frantic energy, his heavy footsteps echoing loudly. He was screaming, his face contorted in sheer terror, purple splotches already marring his skin as if an infection had begun to take hold. As he ran, shadowy, tentacled forms reached out from the darkness, pulling at him, their grip inescapable as he fought to break free. The man's face twisted into something monstrous, his features rapidly distorting as the strange, purple energy consumed him. Bile pink growths erupted from his skin, bursting outward with a sickening sound, completing his transformation into something unrecognizable. The horror spread to the others. A woman in the group recoiled, watching in disbelief as similar purple specks began to appear on her own clothes. Her eyes widened in terror, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek as she realized the same fate was rapidly approaching her. She let out a piercing scream, her mouth agape in a silent cry of agony as the infection consumed her, radiating outward in waves. Her transformation was swift and brutal, her body twisting and elongating as those around her also began to succumb to the grotesque change. Amidst the chaos, another man was violently thrown across the room, slamming into the opposite wall with a sickening force. A massive, grotesque creature, all shadows and glowing purple eyes, loomed over the scene, clearly the source of this horrifying plague. Outside the school, two boys, Ethan and his friend, sat against a brick wall, having escaped the immediate danger but still reeling from the shock. Both wore expressions of profound disbelief, their eyes wide with the lingering images of the horror they had just witnessed inside. They remained on the grass, trying to process the impossible events, a chilling silence hanging between them as they struggled to comprehend. Ethan's friend broke the quiet, asking about someone they had left behind, a question heavy with the weight of their impossible choice. He pressed Ethan, his voice laced with an accusatory tone, reminding him of their shared responsibility to the others. His friend insisted that Ethan cared more than he let on, pushing at a sensitive spot in their already strained conversation. He continued to challenge Ethan, trying to guilt him into action, suggesting that this was his chance to prove himself. An imagined image of Barry Hollis, the girl he liked, flashed through Ethan's mind, smiling brightly as if waiting for a hero. Ethan, however, remained resolute, his expression firm as he refused to let his friend's words sway him from their current path. With a determined step, Ethan's friend turned and began to walk back towards the school, unwilling to abandon those still inside. The two boys cautiously re-entered the darkened building, their flashlights piercing the gloom, revealing the eerie silence of the empty hallways. Ethan's friend, holding a borrowed flashlight, assured the school principal he would put it to good use, trying to sound brave despite the fear. Ethan, meanwhile, was on the phone, his voice trembling as he desperately tried to alert the authorities to the unfolding nightmare. He explained the situation, describing the horrific scene inside the school where many people had already been hurt, pleading for urgent help. They found a classroom door ajar, the beam of their flashlight revealing an unsettling emptiness within, raising more questions than answers. Ethan looked around the desolate classroom, a sense of confusion washing over him as he wondered where everyone had gone. He pointed to strange, glowing purple marks streaking across the floor, suggesting a trail they could follow to find answers. They began to follow the ominous purple trail, their footsteps echoing softly in the deserted hallway, each step filled with growing dread. Ethan suddenly stopped dead in his tracks, his eyes fixed on something horrifying in the distance, a silent gasp escaping his lips. In a darkened room, a group of students knelt, their bodies hunched and still, creating a chilling tableau of silent terror. One of the students, now grotesquely transformed, held a pulsing, fleshy organ in his hand, his mouth stained with purple. The transformed student let out a guttural scream, his eyes vacant and bloodshot, a truly horrifying sight to behold. Ethan and his friend bolted, their hearts pounding as they fled from the horde of infected students now surging toward them. The infected chased relentlessly, their vacant eyes and distorted forms a terrifying blur as the boys scrambled for their lives. They pushed forward, glancing back nervously, knowing that any hesitation could mean falling prey to the monstrous students behind them. Ethan's friend stumbled, sliding across the polished floor, narrowly avoiding a grasping hand from one of the pursuers. They continued their desperate flight, the sounds of pursuit growing louder, each turn of the corridor bringing new dangers. Ethan screamed again, a raw, primal sound of fear as he realized the full extent of the nightmare surrounding them. More of the infected appeared from the shadows, their forms twisted and menacing, their numbers growing by the second. Just as hope seemed lost, Barry Hollis, the girl Ethan liked, appeared, hiding with them, her face pale with fear. Barry asked if they were still at school, then, with a hint of pride, claimed she was the one who had actually saved them. Ethan's friend sat slumped against the lockers, a wry smirk on his face as he watched the interaction, clearly amused. The three of them stood together in the hallway, a small island of normalcy amidst the spreading horror, discussing their next move. Barry turned to them, her expression serious as she prepared to recount her own terrifying experience. She recounted how she had been trapped in the classroom when a mysterious woman arrived, changing everything. The mysterious woman had approached the terrified students, her voice calm as she told them not to be scared. She stood there, an enigmatic figure with an umbrella, surrounded by the unsettling purple residue that marked the infection. Barry, still wary, had asked the woman if she truly meant no harm, her voice betraying a hint of doubt. But the woman's true intentions were revealed as she forced a grotesque, pulsing object into Barry's mouth, silencing her protests. Barry's body convulsed, her face contorting in agony as the purple energy consumed her, transforming her into one of the infected. The transformed Barry Hollis, eyes glowing with malevolent purple light, now held the same fleshy organ, a chilling reflection of the others. The infected Barry lunged forward, her scream echoing through the hallway as she attacked the other students. Ethan listened to Barry's harrowing tale, his face a mask of shock and disbelief at the sheer brutality of it all. The Barry Hollis, currently with them, then showed him a small cross she wore, explaining it was a gift from her father. The cross, a simple silver charm, was her only protection, the reason she hadn't succumbed to the same monstrous fate. She confirmed their worst fears. They were likely the only ones left in the entire school who hadn't been infected. Ethan tried to force open a window, desperate to find any way out of the sealed building. His friend, watching his futile efforts, asked why he bothered, knowing escape was impossible. Ethan's flashlight was suddenly knocked from his grasp, clattering to the floor with a sharp sound. A powerful force sent the flashlight hurtling through the window, a bright streak against the dark outside. It shattered against an invisible barrier just beyond the glass, revealing that the school was completely sealed off from the outside world. Barry stared at the broken shards, her hope visibly crumbling as the reality of their entrapment set in. Ethan looked out at the impenetrable barrier, confirming their predicament and the chilling isolation they faced. The three stood trapped, the weight of their situation pressing down on them as they realized they were utterly alone. Outside the school, the broken flashlight lay among the purple splatters, a grim testament to the invisible force field. Yet, in the distance, a glimmer of hope appeared. Armed figures, possibly police or military, had arrived, their weapons ready. Barry looked back at Ethan and his friend, a small tentative smile grazing her lips, a silent acknowledgement of the potential rescue. A powerful, stern-looking man in a long coat, holding a heavy briefcase, stood at the entrance, his presence suggesting a new, formidable player had entered the game. Malcolm, a determined man of faith, began his mission armed with unusual tools, like an axe with a spirit etched into its blade. He explained that he had urgently taken it from storage, preparing for the dark task ahead. With a shotgun and axe, he felt this arsenal should be sufficient for the coming fight. Chloe, his companion, observed a peculiar winged knife among his chosen gear. He believed he had picked out the good ones, remarking that Malcolm was more suited for this kind of work than the Vatican. Chloe warned him against speaking unholy things, urging him to quickly get everything ready. He promised to return soon, leaving her with a serious task. He left with a resolute stride, heading towards the looming school building. Chloe was instructed to keep a close watch for anyone suspicious approaching the kid they were protecting. The mission was underway, the young charge safe for now, as Malcolm prepared to enter the building. Inside, the school hallways were eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the daylight outside. Malcolm grimly realized he would have to face demons again, a familiar and tiring battle. Chloe sniffled, clearly terrified, prompting Malcolm to tell her not to come if she was afraid. She stayed close behind him, her fear evident but her resolve holding. Deeper inside, they found a strange, glowing pink object on the floor. Chloe knelt, shotgun raised, examining the peculiar sight. It was a vibrant pink apple, lying amidst discarded clothing. Malcolm stood guard as Chloe pondered the meaning of the strange fruit. She questioned if it was merely an apple, but the context suggested something far more sinister. Malcolm confirmed her unspoken fear, identifying it as the forbidden fruit. He explained that anyone who ate it would become a slave, utterly obedient to the demons. The horrific truth dawned on Chloe, her eyes wide with shock. The demons were targeting the school students, turning them into their thralls. Malcolm's face hardened, ready to face the grim reality of their mission. All the students, still human, huddled together in terror, caught in the demonic web. He revealed the demons sought young, pure sacrifices for a ritual, and the fruit was their means. A monstrous, glowing hand reached out, a clear sign of the corrupted students. Ultimately, they desired blood for their unholy rite. The true nature of their enemy, Great Vincent, was revealed in this dark place. With a low hum, a grotesque demon materialized before them, its presence chilling. Its form was unsettling, a creature of nightmare made real. The demon lunged with a forceful crash, initiating the brutal confrontation. Chloe bravely opened fire, her shotgun blasting at the monstrous foe. She remembered her own words. Ordinary weapons wouldn't harm these creatures. A student, Ray, was seized by one of the demon slaves, his terrified face contorted in fear. Ray cried out, urging them to abandon him and save themselves. Another student, Hank, rushed forward, firing his pistol in a desperate attempt to rescue Ray. Ray felt like nothing more than baggage, a burden in this dire situation. He lay on the ground, surrounded by the ominous pink residue of the forbidden fruit. Hank declared there was no retreat, determined to fight to the end. He continued to fire, his weapon sparking with futile energy against a supernatural threat. Hank vowed to save everyone, the students and Ray, a heroic promise in the face of despair. The demon remained unfazed, the bullets doing nothing to stop its advance. A chilling sound made Hank turn, realizing the danger was closer than he thought. He gripped his rifle, his eyes wide with a sudden, terrible understanding. He quickly reloaded his weapon, the click of the mechanism echoing in the tense silence. Desperation etched on his face, he prepared for the inevitable clash. A horde of demon slaves, their eyes glowing pink, advanced on him. He raised his gun, ready to confront the terrifying wave. He hesitated for a brief moment, the sheer number of enemies overwhelming. Sweat beaded on his brow, his fear palpable as he stared down the transformed students. His resolve wavered, the weight of the situation crushing his spirit. A blade sliced through the air with a swift whoosh, a deadly projectile. It spun with lethal precision, heading straight for its target. With a sickening thud, the blade struck, piercing Hank's body. He cried out in agony, blood erupting from the wound. Blood trickled from his lips, his life force draining away. His eyes conveyed a mix of pain and shock as he succumbed to the injury. Ray screamed Hank's name, witnessing the brutal attack. Her face twisted in horror, unable to comprehend what was happening. Hank, gravely wounded, apologized for failing to protect Ray. His body began to contort, consumed by the same pink energy that transformed the others. With a guttural sound, Hank completed his agonizing transformation into a demon slave. He was now a grotesque monster, surrounded by the very fruit that caused his demise. Ray could only watch in terror as her friend became another one of them. She lay on the floor, her spirit broken by the loss and betrayal. Ray cried out Hank's name, overwhelmed by despair at being left alone. The shadow of Hank, now a demon, loomed over her, a cruel reminder of what he had become. She mourned the loss of everyone, calling their deaths meaningless, like a dog's. The shadows of countless victims surrounded her, a silent testament to the demon's harvest. Clutching a cross, Ray was suddenly enveloped in a blinding, holy light. Her body began to glow, transforming into something powerful and ethereal. She emerged as a radiant, angelic figure, a beacon of hope in the darkness. The cross on her chest glowed brightly, signifying a new, sacred power. With newfound resolve, Ray clutched the cross, ready to face the overwhelming evil. An officer apprehended a man for serious offenses, his hands bound behind his back. The grim reality of his actions settled in as he was led away. Mac, one of the officers, was then called over by his superior. With a serious expression, his superior presented Mac with an unexpected request. The request was to take in the arrested man's daughter, knowing Mac had a child of his own. Mac, however, declined, admitting that he and his daughter didn't get along. Another officer, Mr. Burns, stepped forward and volunteered to take the girl instead. Mr. Burns then noticed a young boy named Ethan who bore the marks of a recent struggle. Ethan, bruised but resilient, expressed gratitude for Mr. Burns' earlier intervention in an incident. He wondered aloud if he had truly done the right thing in that moment of chaos. Mr. Burns offered a reassuring touch, telling the boy that his actions were indeed necessary. He advised Ethan not to dwell on his doubts, but to trust his own sense of justice. The young boy, clutching a worn comic book, seemed to find comfort in the officer's words. Mr. Burns, seeing the comic, asked Ethan if he enjoyed those stories. Ethan, shyly, admitted his dream was to become a hero, just like the officer. Mr. Burns smiled, confirming that anyone could become a hero if they truly wished it. He then asked Ethan what kind of hero he aspired to be, prompting a moment of deep thought. Ethan initially declared a grand ambition to save the entire world from peril. He quickly revised his answer, realizing that true heroism began with helping those immediately around him. Years later, the scene shifted dramatically, finding Ethan in a desperate fight against monstrous figures. The air crackled with danger within a desolate school, now overrun by shadowy, skeletal beings. An injured female officer lay nearby, urging Ethan to flee the overwhelming onslaught. Ethan, however, refused to abandon her, remembering his past aspirations to protect. He had trained rigorously in boxing, but these foes were unlike any he had faced. Ethan spotted Barry's cross, a sacred item, and desperately tried to wield its power. The cross, however, offered no immediate salvation, its magic inert in his hands. Frustration mounted as he realized he couldn't replicate Barry's ability to use it. The female officer, growing weaker, implored him again to save himself while he still could. Ethan remained steadfast, unable to leave her behind in such a dire situation. He remembered Mr. Burns' words, that sometimes simply enduring was a form of strength. The monstrous figures closed in, their numbers seemingly endless, pressing their advantage. Ethan was overwhelmed, taking blow after blow, barely able to defend himself. He recalled the childhood spent enduring hardships, a grim preparation for this moment. His resilience, honed by countless past struggles, kept him from giving up entirely. Suddenly, a chilling voice cut through the chaos, questioning the demon's actions. A commanding figure asked if they truly intended to harm students, a line they supposedly wouldn't cross. The voice belonged to none other than Mr. Vincent Burns, now an imposing scythe-wielding figure. He moved with terrifying speed, his presence radiating an aura of dark power. Mr. Burns, bearing distinctive cross scars on his face, had arrived to confront the monsters. He effortlessly dispatched the shadowy figures, his movements precise and deadly. The injured female officer watched in stunned recognition as her father's former colleague fought. She gasped, realizing it was Mr. Burns, transformed into something far beyond a police officer. He explained that he had handled the situation in a way that protected everyone in the school. His grim determination was evident as he continued to eliminate the threats surrounding them. Mr. Burns then turned his attention to Ethan, his tone sharp with criticism. He pointed out Ethan's foolish fighting style, chastising him for getting hurt unnecessarily. Another monstrous entity lunged forward, catching them off guard with its sudden attack. The female officer, despite her injuries, grabbed the modified shotgun nearby. She aimed and fired, hoping to provide support, but the weapon's recoil proved too much. Her shoulder, already dislocated, buckled under the force, sending a wave of pain through her. Mr. Burns looked on, a flicker of surprise crossing his usually stoic face. The sheer power of the modified gun was evident in the explosive impact it created. Yet, even with the weapon's strength, the female officer was clearly struggling. He saw her agony, the grim reality of her dislocated shoulder becoming apparent. Mr. Burns realized the danger she was in and the true cost of her reckless bravery. He had to act quickly to protect those who were still vulnerable, even from their own good intentions. Mr. Burns stood tall, a formidable protector in the midst of chaos. He seemed to embody the very essence of a dark hero, his presence both terrifying and reassuring. The female officer stared at him, a complex mix of awe and fear in her eyes. She called out his name, a desperate plea for help, or perhaps just a cry of recognition. Mr. Burns, however, seemed unfazed, his attention fixed on the remaining threats. Another demon stirred, a lingering threat that Mr. Burns had seemingly left alive. He then revealed that he hadn't intentionally spared the creature, a chilling admission. The female officer, confused, questioned why he was here, in this place, doing this work. He simply glanced at the cross necklace around his neck, a silent explanation. The sacred relic, now resting on the cold floor, seemed to hint at a deeper, more profound purpose for his existence. Camila, a compassionate officer, watched over a woman recovering from a strange transformation, her heart heavy with shared burdens. The injured woman's bandaged leg, still stained with traces of purple, was a stark reminder of the ordeal she had just endured. She sat quietly on the counter, her transformed body slowly returning to its former state, though the trauma lingered. Camila assured her that her body would eventually go back to normal, needing only time to heal. The woman, however, was consumed by guilt, believing that the deaths of Hank and Ray were her fault. She felt responsible for their demise, convinced that she had been the cause of their tragic end. Camila gently embraced her, offering comfort and insisting that the blame did not lie with her. Vincent, a stoic figure, stood nearby, observing the scene with a detached intensity. He told Camila to leave the task of avenging their comrades to him, a heavy burden he seemed prepared to shoulder alone. Camila pleaded with Vincent to offer some words of comfort to the distressed woman, sensing his cold demeanor. He merely offered a non-committal glance, his expression unreadable, before turning to leave. Vincent continued to walk away, his steps measured and deliberate, his silence a stark contrast to Camila's pleas. Camila, frustrated by his lack of empathy, questioned if it hurt a former priest to offer a bit of comfort. She watched, her face a mixture of concern and exasperation, as Vincent seemed to ignore her entirely. He stopped abruptly, turning back to face the group, a new question forming on his lips. Vincent then asked the recovering woman, later known as Barry, if she was going to save herself. He explained that he needed to question her about the mysterious item she held, its significance clear in his intense gaze. Barry revealed that her father had given the small, cross-shaped object to her, a family heirloom perhaps. Vincent pressed further, wanting to know the exact nature of the item she possessed. He explained that it was a nail used to fasten Jesus to the cross, a relic of immense sacred power. The cross Barry held was one of three, melted down from that original nail, imbued with profound spiritual energy. He offered the cross to Ethan, suggesting he keep it, a gesture that surprised the young man. Ethan questioned if he was truly worthy of holding such an incredible artifact, its power almost overwhelming. Vincent reassured him, explaining that such a cross naturally finds its way to whoever needs it most. He told Ethan that if the cross had ended up in his hands, there was undoubtedly a reason for it. Just then, Diego burst into the room, calling out to Ethan, relieved to find him safe. Ethan quickly ran to Diego, his face showing concern as he checked on his friend. Diego explained that the monsters had stopped chasing him and ascended to the second floor instead. He speculated that something significant must be happening upstairs, drawing the creatures away. A profound sense of unease settled over the group, the unknown lurking just above them. Vincent and Camila began their ascent, the path ahead shrouded in an eerie, unsettling glow. The stairs stretched before them, leading into the deepening mystery of the upper floor. As they reached the door, a faint creaking sound echoed through the silent corridor. Camila's eyes widened in surprise as she caught a glimpse of something unsettling through the crack in the door. Vincent, however, simply strode forward, dismissing Camila's observation with a curt command. He told her not to block his view and to move, ignoring her concerns about proper infiltration protocol. Vincent pushed past Camila, his urgency overriding any sense of order or caution. The scene that unfolded before them was horrifying. Glowing pink tendrils snaked through the air. These tendrils pulsed with an ominous energy connected to the lifeless bodies of several victims. Camila gasped, realizing the children's bodies were bleeding, their life force visibly draining away. She questioned if everyone on this floor was in similar danger, her voice laced with dread. Vincent confirmed her fears, stating that if this continued, everyone would surely die. He reached out, attempting to sever the glowing tendrils, but they proved impervious to his touch. Camila suggested they try to grab and pull the tendrils down, hoping to break their hold. Vincent, however, knew it would do no good, the power behind them far too great to simply rip apart. A powerful demon, seated on a throne of tendrils, revealed that the humans were completely under her control. She challenged them, saying if they truly wanted to save the victims, they would have to beg their master for mercy. The demon, a majestic and terrifying figure, welcomed Vincent, addressing him as Burns. She slowly transformed, her form becoming more monstrous, her power radiating outwards. Her true appearance was a nightmarish vision, a creature of raw, intimidating power. She expressed her preference that Vincent had left before she arrived, hinting at a history between them. Vincent, unfazed by her taunts, demanded to know what she was truly preparing with all this bloodshed. The demon scoffed, remarking that a ritual usually did not require such an exorbitant amount of blood. She then offered him a hint, suggesting that with blood, she could accomplish a great many things. With her power, she could control others, bending them to her will with ease. She demonstrated this by conjuring a grotesque, bubbling creature from the blood-soaked ground. The small demon snarled, its form unsettling and clearly malevolent. Camilla watched, horrified, as the creature materialized before her eyes. The demon gloated, asking if her authority wasn't impressive, her smirk wide and confident. Vincent, however, remained unimpressed, stating that just hearing about her power made him feel sick. He calmly drew his weapon, a unique cross-shaped gun, and prepared to strike. The demon's eyes flared with a fierce crimson light, her composure finally breaking. Vincent fired his weapon, the blast tearing through the air with incredible force. A massive explosion erupted, engulfing the demon in a blinding inferno. Her physical form was incinerated, but a shadowy, winged figure quickly coalesced from the smoke. The demon raged, furious that he had dared to interrupt her mid-conversation with such an attack. She introduced herself as Bush, the great judge of hell, the conqueror, her voice filled with arrogant power. Vincent dismissed her grand titles, declaring her nothing more than another demon he needed to hunt down. He fired his crossgun again, unleashing another devastating blast. Another powerful explosion engulfed the demon, shaking the entire floor. The demon reappeared unharmed, but this time she held Barry hostage, a glowing pink cross pressed to her throat. She warned Vincent to drop his weapon, threatening Barry's life if he refused. Burns, a man haunted by his past, found himself in a school consumed by chaos, where a gun lay discarded on the floor. A powerful, pink-skinned demon, Bush, held a terrified young girl hostage, her fate hanging by a thread in the unfolding pandemonium. Vincent, a stoic figure in a dark suit, observed the scene with a raised hand, surrounded by the unsettling, distorted forms of other beings. Bush taunted Burns, accusing all demons of being the same when faced with adversity, but Burns's glowing red eye showed no sign of being intimidated by her words. Enraged, Bush screamed a desperate warning, pressing her cross-shaped weapon menacingly against the innocent girl's neck. Burns, with an unsettling calm, held Bush's own weapon at her throat, daring her to make a move, no matter what she decided. He gripped Bush by her horn, his smile chilling as he announced that this confrontation would be her ultimate end. Vincent, now revealed with ominous dark wings, stood amidst thorny pink vines, promising to deliver a fate far worse than anything imagined. His true form, a powerful judge, emerged, eyes glowing with an intense, otherworldly light as the thorny vines writhed around him. Grotesque demons, caught in the judge's thorny embrace, thrashed and screamed in agony, utterly helpless against his power. Even the bewildered students found themselves ensnared by the same mystical vines, caught between fear and a strange daze. Bush, shocked and fearful, listened as the judge mocked her regenerative abilities, questioning her reckless abandon. The judge presented a gruesome question, pointing to a single human head buried in the ground, challenging the limits of her regeneration. Bush, still trapped, tried to regain her composure, belittling the judge's past victories and accusing him of arrogance. Unexpectedly, the judge casually hurled something with a swift whoosh, striking Bush with a sharp crack, leaving her gasping in shock. He smiled, holding a severed human head, explaining that he threw it out of boredom, yet it had hit its mark perfectly. With his red eyes glowing, he commanded his subordinates to bring him the human head, as other demons scattered in terror. The sheriff, clutching her shotgun, expressed her worry. The battle had mixed students and demons into an indistinguishable, dangerous crowd. Our boy Burns, however, flashed a competent smile, instructing her to simply clean up the demons he had already dealt with, hinting at a hidden method. He raised his axe with fierce determination, revealing that his actions could restore the lost minds of the corrupted, leaving the sheriff stunned. A student screamed, their eyes glowing pink, a testament to the chaotic corruption spreading through the school. Burns launched into action, his axe swinging down with a forceful thwack, making contact with the demon. He continued his relentless assault, his axe swishing through the air, striking another demon with precision. With a powerful crack, Burns sliced through a demon, its form dissolving under his fierce blow. He moved like a whirlwind, delivering rapid, decisive hits that cut down multiple demons in his path. Demons fell around him with screams and duds, while humans still stood, dazed, caught in the terrifying aftermath. Bush, the pink demon, watched in stunned surprise as the battle raged, a crunching sound echoing the destruction. Vincent, the man in black, smiled chillingly, surrounded by floating skulls and surging pink energy embodying pure, destructive power. His power erupted in a devastating blast, striking multiple demons with bangs, thuds, and slicing sounds. Desperate, a demon grabbed a human, using them as a living shield with a sickening smack. A colossal demon roared in frustration, holding a human shield, chastising its allies for their foolish, head-on charge. It ordered its forces to exploit the humans as shields, urging them to push forward with a thunderous roar. Burns leaped into the air, expertly tossing his axe, which whirred through the chaos like a deadly boomerang. The axe spun, cutting through demons with thuds and crunches, clearing a path through the enemy ranks. The weapon returned to his hand with a thwack, leaving a demon screaming in terror at our boy's formidable presence. The sheriff, calmly handcuffing a screaming human, assured them that Vincent would handle the greater demonic threat. Bush, the pink demon, watched the unfolding events, her expression a mix of shock and disbelief. Ab, another powerful judge, appeared, delivering a stern warning to Bush never confront Burns directly. He explained that judges like them were limited on Earth, unable to unleash their full, formidable power. Ab's eye glowed with fierce resolve, stating their mission was to simply endure until a mysterious gate was opened. He reminded Bush, depicted with axes piercing her head, that she was the weakest among them, a clear disadvantage. Ab emphasized that Burns, now glowing with immense power, was far beyond Bush's capability to defeat. Bush, defiant despite being trapped, scoffed at the very notion of bowing to a mere human like Burns. Ignoring the warning, Bush broke free, radiating pink energy, declaring herself the judge destined to end the world. With a surge of raw power, she unleashed a devastating blast of pink energy, aiming to annihilate her opponent. Burns, now fully transformed with demon wings, stood unwavering, ready to meet the impending attack head-on. Bush fired a massive, world-ending energy beam, a brilliant pink streak tearing through the air with a powerful blast. The devastating beam struck Burns directly, engulfing him in its destructive force with an impactful crash. Bush watched, a look of triumph on her face as Burns's body appeared to be torn apart, blood splattering everywhere. She held out a hand, still confident in her victory, a faint whoosh sound accompanying her gesture. But in an instant, Burns appeared behind her with a thwack, his cross-shaped weapon at her neck, declaring her the loser. With a thunderous boom, Burns unleashed a powerful, decisive attack with his weapon, sealing Bush's fate. The sheriff, responding to an unseen command, held out a gun, offering it to Burns. She aimed her weapon at the defeated Bush, cocking it with a sharp click. Burns stood over the fallen Bush, now holding the gun, the battle clearly decided. Bush, her face cracked and defeated, still managed to call Burns a pitiful man, a final taunt. Even in utter defeat, Bush twisted a malicious smile, revealing a dark truth. Burns would never see his wife again, regardless of his faith. Her eye reflected a haunting image of Burns standing over what appeared to be his deceased wife, a memory she used to torment him. Bush, reduced to a pink cross on the ground, taunted him with a horrible future, claiming he killed his own wife, but Burns simply stated he was already living in hell. With that chilling declaration, Burns walked away, leaving the defeated demon behind, the haunting pink cross marking the end of their encounter. Father Vincent, a man burdened by grim duties, found himself navigating the unsettling aftermath of a demonic attack. The school grounds, once a place of everyday life, now stood as a silent testament to the horror that had unfolded within its walls. Inside, the students slowly began to stir, their bodies weak and minds disoriented from the ordeal they had just endured. Sheriff Camila, looking shaken, worried aloud about the demon corpses scattered across the floor, but Vincent calmly reassured her. He knew their fear would be dulled. The students had already had their blood drained almost to death, leaving them barely aware of the carnage. Suddenly, two agitated students rushed towards Vincent, their faces etched with a desperate urgency. One of them, Mr. Burns, immediately pressed Vincent, asking which of the remaining students was the mysterious Barry they had sought. The students could only shake their heads, their confusion mirroring the growing unease that settled over the scene. A chilling realization struck them. Barry had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a pulsating, ethereal heart. The weight of the ongoing battle against the encroaching darkness always fell heaviest on Vincent's shoulders. Outside, the first wave of official responders arrived, police cars swarming the quiet school grounds. Ambulances followed, loading stretchers with the wounded, a stark visual reminder of the incident's human cost. A man in a trench coat taking charge declared the entire incident a biochemical terror attack, framing it for official records. He then approached one of the students, sternly informing him that the details were classified and must not be spread. With a hand on the student's shoulder, he offered a hollow comfort, promising to look for the missing girl and urging them all to go home. The student could only stare, his expression a mix of bewilderment and deep-seated trauma that words couldn't erase. Nearby, two other students tried to console each other, whispering that they had done everything humanly possible. They decided to relinquish control, concluding that the remaining daunting tasks were now up to the adults. As Vincent prepared to leave, Camila approached him, her gaze earnest and full of unburdened gratitude. She thanked him sincerely, her voice soft with relief that her friend had survived the night's horrors. Her gratitude was profound, a stark contrast to the hardened reality Vincent lived every single day. Vincent simply looked away, a silent acknowledgement of her words, but his mind was already elsewhere. He reflected on his own words, realizing he could have offered similar comfort to Camila, who had lost so much earlier that day. Camila, with keen observation, noted that Vincent had the sheriff by his side during the chaos, a rare form of support for him. Our boy carried a somber expression, the weight of countless unseen battles etched onto his weary face. She then voiced a deeper concern, pointing out that Vincent seemed to be utterly alone in his relentless struggle. He dismissed her worry with a curt reply, claiming he wasn't sad, his stoic facade firmly in place. Yet, Camila's expression softened, a flicker of her own past pain surfacing as she considered his isolation. She confided her haunting thoughts, wondering if the comrades who had fallen had trembled in fear, just as she often did. Her mind replayed the vivid, terrifying images of her colleagues, consumed by flames, their lives extinguished in an instant. She remembered the villages and the people at the church, their desperate pleas silenced by the relentless, cruel onslaught. A fierce resolve burned in her eyes. She refused to allow anyone else to suffer through such unspeakable horrors. With newfound determination, she pleaded with Vincent, offering her help in his ongoing perilous fight. Vincent, however, met her plea with a grim warning, explaining that his line of work meant dying could happen at any moment. He confirmed his reality, stating plainly that he was already living a life constantly on the precipice of death. But Camila's gaze remained unwavering, her determined eyes reflecting an unshakable commitment to her decision. Vincent then posed a probing question, asking if she truly believed demons and ordinary criminals were one and the same. Camila pondered his words, a thoughtful silence falling between them as she weighed the immense implications. After a moment, Vincent extended an unexpected invitation, telling her to come to his office starting tomorrow. A wide, joyful smile broke across Camila's face as she accepted, eagerly declaring herself his new partner. She even gave a little jump, brimming with the youthful enthusiasm that momentarily brightened the heavy atmosphere. Vincent then turned and walked away, leaving Camila to bask in the glow of her new purpose. He arrived at a modest building, its exterior hinting at a quiet, unassuming existence. Inside, a flight of stairs led him further into the sanctuary, a stark contrast to the chaos he had just left. Vincent sat at a table, a bowl of stew before him, but his expression suggested he was far from pleased. He eyed the food with suspicion, questioning what exactly had been placed in front of him. A nun, the sister, replied with a warm smile, explaining it was the cream stew she had lovingly prepared. She wisely advised him to eat his fill, reminding him that he never knew when his next battle with demons might arise. With a knowing look, she confidently declared that she was certain it would be absolutely delicious. At the table, a small, white-haired girl named Taylor sat quietly, observing the scene with wide, innocent eyes. The sister then added with a mischievous glint that their demon friends had even approved of the unique seasoning. Taylor, in her own unique way, responded by simply face-planting directly into her bowl of stew. Vincent, ever the patient guardian, gently corrected her, telling her not to copy those guys, and to use a spoon instead. Taylor, confused but willing, picked up the spoon, her eyes seeking guidance on this strange new utensil. Vincent demonstrated, carefully scooping a small portion of the stew, showing her the proper technique. He patiently instructed her to bring the spoon to her mouth, guiding her through the simple act. Taylor tentatively followed his lead, a small triumph as she managed to get a spoonful of food. Vincent offered a rare smile of encouragement, praising her progress and assuring her that she would master it in time. The sister then offered a thought, suggesting that if Taylor could learn to speak, she might share something incredibly useful about her origins. Vincent knelt, pointing to a cat, and spoke the word clearly, as if inviting Taylor to step into a world of understanding she had already mastered in ways they could not yet grasp. The mysterious Habael, a fallen angel, stirred back to life as a group of unlikely helpers watched over her. She slowly opened her eyes, finding herself in an unfamiliar room, confused about where she was and what had happened. An overhead view showed the quiet domestic setting, a stark contrast to the chaos she had recently endured. The priest, Vincent, observed her with a calm, assessing gaze, his expression unreadable. Suddenly, the woman in uniform let out a startled cry, her face contorted in shock. She quickly moved to cover Habael, wondering aloud why the angel was completely unclothed. A moment later, Habael, now dressed in a simple red outfit, held a small cat, looking around with a hint of curiosity. Her blue eyes held a sharp focus, a silent command in their depths as she demanded some proper attire. A soft smile touched her lips as she donned a flowing white robe, realizing a crucial piece of her mission was close at hand. Vincent and the nun remained serious, their expressions betraying the gravity of the situation they found themselves in. Habael then transformed, enveloped in a radiant golden glow, declaring herself a true messenger of heaven, an angel delivering love. The woman in uniform crossed her arms, a skeptical look on her face as Habael introduced herself as Habael. Habael looked surprised, then a touch of sadness crossed her features, suggesting a deep, cosmic connection to her current plight. She turned to the group, her gaze settling on them with an intensity that implied a sacred destiny, referring to them as consecrated ones. The nun, ever solemn, listened intently as Habael requested to be taken to a priest named Andres. Habael then explained that the bond connecting her to Andres had been severed, a realization that seemed to trouble her deeply. She pointed to the small child, revealing that this innocent soul was the very key to unlocking the gates of heaven. Flashbacks showed Habael, a radiant angel, kneeling before Andres, seeking his aid in a desperate struggle. A colossal serpent, a creature of darkness, coiled around a column of light as the very gate of heaven began to slowly close. The angel and Andres fought valiantly against overwhelming odds, their struggle against the demonic forces becoming increasingly desperate. With the gate of heaven nearly shut, their options dwindled, leaving them only capable of interfering with the demon's grand scheme. Habael recounted her journey, her voice tinged with weariness, explaining how she had escaped the demons and ended up here. Vincent listened, his hand thoughtfully stroking his chin, piecing together the incredible tale he was hearing. The woman in uniform watched as Vincent clenched his fist, a fierce resolve in his eyes, honoring Andres' sacrifice. Habael transformed once more, a brilliant light radiating from her as she declared her intent to reopen the celestial gate. The camera lingered on the small child, nestled in a wooden box with a cat, a vital piece of the cosmic puzzle. Habael gently touched the child's shoulder, telling her not to stand, a gesture of care and protection. A worried expression crossed Habael's face as she noticed something was amiss with the key, a crucial piece missing. She informed the group that she could not open the gate in its current state, her voice filled with a hint of urgency. With newfound determination, Habael declared that everyone must accompany her on this pivotal quest. Vincent and the nun exchanged glances, clearly perplexed by Habael's latest pronouncement. Habael explained that the glowing child was one of the souls Vincent had helped move on, a profound connection. Vincent, however, looked confused, noting that the child did not resemble Evelyn, someone he clearly knew. The woman in uniform also failed to recognize the child, adding to the growing mystery surrounding the key. The nun, looking at Vincent, asked if he was certain he wasn't mistaken, as there was no one fitting that description. Habael, visibly frustrated, raised her voice, asserting that she was never wrong about such matters. The woman in uniform and Vincent exchanged exasperated looks, silently questioning if all angels behaved this way. Alcar, the skeleton, wondered if an alliance between the angel and the Burns team would put them at a disadvantage. Habayel, without a word, began to stride towards Alcar's jar, a mischievous glint in her eye. Alcar, startled, cried out, asking Habayel what she intended to do with him. Habayel simply smiled, a knowing and slightly menacing expression on her face, ignoring his plea. Alcar desperately pleaded with her to wait, realizing the danger he was in. The scene was obscured, but the sound of something being crushed echoed, hinting at Habayel's ruthless action. Both the woman in uniform and Vincent reacted with horrified shock, the sound of the crunching materializing their fears. Habayel, now glowing with renewed power, revealed that it had been a millennium since she had last recharged her strength using demons. Alcar, reduced to a mere skeleton, could only watch in silent terror, his jaw agape in utter disbelief. A golden sword, now imbued with energy, hummed softly as it pointed towards a specific location. Habayel instructed them to bring a map, revealing that the missing fragment lay where the sword indicated. The woman in uniform looked astonished as she read the location, realizing it was a casino. Vincent confirmed her fears, explaining that the casino was a dangerous place, frequented by criminals. A terrifying, shadowy demon face with glowing red eyes appeared, emphasizing the perilous nature of their destination. Vincent's face clouded with concern, confirming that demons indeed dwelled in such a place. A confident, almost sinister smile spread across his face as he admitted he knew these particular demons very well. He adjusted his tie, remarking that it had been a long time since he had worn a proper suit. Vincent, now impeccably dressed, questioned why he needed to wear such formal attire for their mission. He explained that a priest walking into a casino would draw too much attention, requiring a different approach. The woman in uniform, now transformed into a sleek, elegant figure in a dark dress, asserted that they needed to blend in. She nervously asked if it was time for them to enter the intimidating establishment. Vincent, his expression hardened with resolve, affirmed their path to find the fragment and finally bring this long conflict to an end. Vincent Burns arrived at the Grand Casino, a place known for its dark allure and hidden dangers, searching for a crucial fragment. Inside, the vibrant yet sinister atmosphere of gambling machines and dealers greeted him, the clank of coins filling the air. Bunny-eared dealers moved with practiced ease, serving guests and managing the games. He observed a man in a fedora, intently playing cards at a table, seemingly absorbed in the game. His gaze then shifted to a woman in a glamorous dress, standing alone and looking a bit lost in the bustling room. The man in the fedora, noticing her vulnerability, made an unwanted advance, slapping her on the behind. The woman was visibly shocked and distressed by the sudden, brazen act, while the man just smirked at her reaction. She turned away, trying to escape the situation, but the man pressed his advantage, moving to follow her. His face held a smug, predatory smile, clearly enjoying her discomfort and his perceived control. He moved closer, invading her personal space, suggesting he escort her through the rough crowd. Just then, Vincent stepped in, his presence a sudden firm barrier between them, asking if the man had business with his companion. The man, taken aback by Vincent's unexpected intervention, quickly retreated, leaving them alone in the casino's glow. The woman looked at Vincent with a mix of surprise and relief, a new dynamic settling over the moment. She thanked him, explaining that she couldn't have caused a scene, trying to maintain composure. Vincent, ever practical, pointed out that if she truly wished to avoid drawing attention, she should have dressed more casually. She pondered his words, a slight blush rising to her cheeks as she realized he had both scolded and complimented her at the same time. His focus quickly returned to the mission, his sharp blue eyes scanning the room, unable to sense the fragment anywhere. Suddenly, an unexpected sight caught his attention. A small, white-haired girl, the key, walking alone down a grand hallway. Both Vincent and the woman looked on, surprised to see her in such a dangerous place, wondering how she got inside. A large, imposing guard blocked the girl's path further down the hall, his expression grim and his stance authoritative. Vincent watched the guard, realizing he was likely questioning why the girl, who should have been waiting outside, was here. The guard's face was stern, his authority absolute, making it clear that she was not permitted to pass. Vincent's expression hardened, a silent defiance settling over him as he prepared for what was to come. The guard, seeing Vincent approach, swung a powerful punch, attempting to stop him from interfering. Vincent blocked the blow with ease, the impact met with a subtle ripple of energy around his arm. The larger man's face registered surprise, clearly not expecting such a calm and effective defense. With a swift, decisive counter, Vincent struck back, knocking the guard out with a single, powerful blow. He then continued down the hallway, leaving the unconscious man behind, his path now clear. Meanwhile, high above the city, an angel with large white wings flew towards the casino, her mission clear. The angel, a nun, had entered the building with the key, believing it would make finding the fragment easier. Attached to her belt, a macabre demon skull, the demon itself, served as a strange accessory. The angel calmly spoke to the demon, who she carried like a grim trophy. The demon's skull-like face seemed to question her words, a hint of curiosity in its empty sockets. The angel soared over the casino building, her purpose resolute, a beacon in the night sky. Her piercing blue eye, filled with an otherworldly resolve, was fixed on the structure below. The demon's voice, however, held a dark revelation, its expression ominous as it spoke of betrayal. Vincent walked through the inner halls, his footsteps echoing softly on the plush carpet. 2 more guards stood waiting, poised to intercept anyone who dared to pass without permission. He walked past them, his presence an unspoken challenge, his steps unwavering. Vincent confronted the guards, who quickly moved to block his path, demanding he stop. He quickly dispatched one with a single punch, the impact sharp and efficient. The other guard reacted with shock and disbelief, watching his comrade fall so swiftly. With another swift and brutal strike, Vincent took down the second guard, who crumpled to the floor. He glanced back at the fallen man, but there was no time to waste, the mission pressing on. The little girl, the key, had already reached a large, ornate door at the end of the hall. She reached for the handle, about to open it, her small hand a stark contrast to the heavy portal. Vincent caught up to her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder, a silent reunion before the final confrontation. Together, they entered a vast, luxurious room, the true heart of the casino, bathed in golden light. Vincent surveyed the opulent space, his gaze moving across the grand hall, assessing the situation. His eyes finally settled on the manager, Mammon, seated at a grand poker table, awaiting them. Mammon, a formidable figure with glowing red eyes and a white beard, watched them approach, a smirk playing on his lips. Vincent walked towards him, his steps deliberate, ready for the direct challenge that lay ahead. Mammon's face held a smug, taunting expression, clearly enjoying the power he wielded in this moment. He held up 2 glowing fragments, the very objects Vincent sought, baiting him with their presence. The key, seeing the fragments, reacted with an undeniable urge, her eyes fixed on the shimmering pieces. Mammon, surrounded by his bunny girl dealers, leaned back confidently, ready for the confrontation to unfold. Vincent didn't hesitate, firing a shot at Mammon, but the bullet simply bounced off, revealing a hidden defense. The bullet ricocheted loudly, confirming Mammon's unexpected resilience and the trap he had laid. Mammon then introduced his friends, revealing his hired help, a formidable array of individuals. Tatiana, a mercenary from the Russian military, bowed slightly, her presence exuding a quiet lethality. Vittore Moretti, an Italian mafia member, stood by, calmly puffing on a cigar, a dangerous air about him. And finally, Killer Joe, a man whose reputation preceded him, completed the sinister lineup. Vincent remained unfazed by the introductions, his expression calm and unwavering despite the odds. Mammon, confident in his trap, explained his strategy, his voice dripping with condescension. He revealed that people with special powers, like Vincent, were mostly executed by humans throughout history. The casino staff, now revealed as armed enforcers, aimed their weapons at Vincent and the key. Mammon watched, fully expecting Vincent's immortality to be useless against human bullets, his plan seemingly foolproof. The room was now a tense standoff, Vincent and the key surrounded, Mammon holding all the cards. The true test of Vincent's power and his very existence was about to begin. Vincent, a man living on the razor's edge, found himself suddenly engulfed by the deafening roar of relentless gunfire. He shielded the young girl, Taylor, pulling her close as they sprinted through the opulent corridor, a hail of bullets hot on their heels. A man in a suit spun, his pistol barking, and with another shot an assailant crumpled, adding to the growing chaos. With grim resolve, he held her tight, his eyes scanning for an escape route amidst the chaos that had engulfed them. A high-powered sniper rifle lay ready, its mechanism clicking into place as Mammon mused on the difference between knowing a method and mastering it. Vincent, with his distinctive cross scar, returned the sinister smile, a silent challenge in his eyes as he prepared for what was next. Mammon, the orchestrator of this deadly game, leaned back, his expression a picture of self-satisfaction and absolute control. From behind, he watched the live feeds of the casino, a server approaching with his coffee as the screens flickered with static. He leaned into a microphone, a crackle of static preceding his public announcement, drawing everyone's attention. A woman in an elegant dress paused her game, her expression shifting from confusion to a dawning realization of something amiss. She looked up, her face a canvas of uncertainty as Mammon's voice boomed, interrupting the usual hum of the casino floor. Two serious-looking men in suits listened intently, their faces reflecting the sudden gravity of the situation unfolding around them. All that money, Mammon continued, would go to whoever apprehended his chosen target, making the game personal. Mammon sipped his coffee, his red eyes gleaming, the contrast between his calm demeanor and the chaos he stirred chilling. One man, his eyes burning with greed, gripped his pistol and declared the prize his own, ready to join the chase. The casino guests erupted into a frenzy, some fleeing in terror, others eager to join the deadly hunt for the reward. Her wide, terrified eye reflected the sudden, brutal reality of their situation, a world turned upside down by greed. Bullets continued to fly around them as Vincent and Taylor pressed on, their footsteps echoing a desperate rhythm. He moved with practiced ease, his body a shield for Taylor, narrowly avoiding the deadly projectiles meant for him. Vincent's face, etched with determination, showed no sign of yielding, only a grim resolve to survive this onslaught. Taylor, small and vulnerable, watched him, her trust absolute, knowing he would do everything to keep her safe. A lone assailant crept along the wall, his submachine gun ready, a new threat emerging from the shadows. He raised his weapon, the click of the safety echoing ominously, signaling his readiness to engage. The man unleashed a spray of bullets, but Vincent reacted with lightning speed, kicking the weapon aside. Vincent followed through, his powerful strike sending the man sprawling to the ground, out of the fight. Another man cried out, a plea to stop, his face contorted in a mix of fear and surprise at Vincent's lethal efficiency. He continued his relentless march, Taylor still by his side, their quiet footsteps a stark contrast to the violence they left behind. Their footsteps pounded against the plush carpet, a steady beat of escape as they navigated the treacherous corridors. Out of nowhere, a woman in a bunny suit struck with a powerful kick, catching Vincent off guard, her intentions clear. She held a knife, her red eyes gleaming with malicious intent as Vincent looked on, a grim realization dawning in his blue eye. He gripped her arm tightly, his strength immense even with the wound, refusing to let her inflict further harm. Their struggle was fierce, a brutal dance of close-quarters combat, each trying to gain the upper hand. He used his pistol to strike her, a blunt impact that momentarily stunned her, creating an opening in their fight. The gun clattered to the floor, a metallic sound that signaled the shift from ranged combat to a more intimate struggle. He seized her knife, his hand closing around the blade with a painful grip, determined to disarm her. She plunged the knife into him, a sharp, sudden pain that momentarily stole his breath away, her persistence chilling. He looked at his fresh wound, reflecting that in the face of death, all the money in the world was just meaningless paper. His grip tightened on the knife, the weapon now his, a grim symbol of his resolve to fight on despite the pain. He removed a ring from his finger, a small action that held a deeper, symbolic meaning for him, blood staining his suit. His eye, though pained, still held a fierce light, reflecting the inner strength that fueled his desperate fight. Blood bloomed across his suit, a stark visual of his injuries, yet he stood unbowed, unwavering in his purpose. He reloaded his weapon, the metallic click, a stark declaration that despite his wounds, the fight was far from over. He found himself encircled, a daunting number of armed men emerging from every direction, guns pointed his way. The sheer number of his opponents was overwhelming, a sea of determined faces ready to claim the bounty on his head. Mammon, watching from his distant lair, wore a smug expression, certain of his victory as his plan unfolded perfectly. Vincent surveyed his desperate situation, a quiet resignation in his eyes as a voice declared the game finished, then a flicker of defiance. Panic erupted among the armed men, their shouts and cries of confusion echoing in the unexpected blackness. Even Mammon, for the first time, looked genuinely surprised, his confident demeanor cracking at the unforeseen turn of events. Back in a hidden control room, the girl who had been watching Vincent, Taylor, activated the blackout, offering her silent aid. The men fumbled in the dark, cursing their predicament, some desperately calling out for a lighter to pierce the gloom. Vincent moved like a phantom, using the momentary flares from their guns to navigate and strike, turning their offense against them. He became a blur, attacking decisively in the fleeting light, each muzzle flash illuminating his precise, deadly movements. A man with an eye patch realized Vincent's horrifying strategy, understanding that their own weapons betrayed their positions. Another body lay still on the ground, a silent testament to Vincent's mastery of the dark, his numbers dwindling rapidly. He stepped over the fallen, his presence growing more imposing with each enemy he dispatched in the darkness. Vincent's eyes glowed with an eerie blue light, his gun raised, a chilling declaration of the hunt's near end. The last man, trembling, made a desperate appeal, asking if decent people typically hesitated before taking a life. Vincent's gun barked, the sound sharp and final, as a spray of blood confirmed his chilling answer. Now, with an eerie blue glow, he stood as a terrifying force, ready for whatever the new dawn might bring. This was only the beginning. The agent was breathing hard, covered in blood, utterly exhausted by the high bounty placed on just one person. His face showed the strain of the battle, the realization dawning on him that this was no ordinary target. From the wreckage, a monstrous figure emerged, confirming his dread. Catching that creature was truly impossible. The sheer size and menacing aura of the monster made his task feel utterly hopeless. He desperately tried to call for backup, wondering when the other guys would finally arrive to support them. Meanwhile, two other agents were firing their weapons at a figure, but the bullets simply bounced off without effect. Smoke billowed from their guns, their faces etched with disbelief as their shots proved useless. One of the agents watched his cigarette fall from his mouth, completely stunned by the sight before him. Standing tall and majestic, an angelic figure with glowing wings remained completely unharmed, untouched by the barrage of bullets. The angel looked down at them with an expression of mild curiosity, remarking on humanity's astonishing rate of progress. The two agents were visibly terrified, their eyes wide with fear as they faced the otherworldly being. Our guy, the boss, tried to calm his team, telling them it was fine, that angels wouldn't harm humans. He even tried to convince himself, clinging to the belief that angels were benevolent and wouldn't interfere. But then, the angel appeared right behind him, chillingly stating that she had never heard of such a rule. With a swift, brutal motion, the angel brought down her sword, splattering blood across the pristine hallway. A skull lay on the ground, a grim testament to the angel's power and the lives she had just taken. Another body fell, lifeless, showing the merciless efficiency of the angel's attack. The angel's face hardened, and in a flash she transformed, revealing the terrifying visage of a demon. The demon stood over the fallen boss, her sword still dripping, the air heavy with dread. Elsewhere, an older man named Mammon watched the chaos unfold on his security monitors, his face grim. He spoke into his comms, noting the angel's unexpected companions and the fact they were after a key fragment. A sudden realization struck him. The key fragment, his precious possession, was gone. He slammed his hands on the casino table, staring at the empty spot where the fragment should have been. Reviewing the footage, Mammon saw the woman who had taken it, realizing he had never seen her face in his casino before. His eyes flared with electric energy, a surge of pure fury coursing through him as he cursed Vincent for fooling him. In another part of the building, the lights flickered erratically, plunging the area into an unsettling gloom. A woman named Chloe looked up, concerned by the sudden power outage, wondering what was happening. She then looked around, hands up, claiming she was just lost and had nothing to do with the power cut. A man with a hat, Vincent, emerged from the shadows, his eyes narrowed, his suspicion clear. He pointed an accusing finger at Chloe, convinced she was the one who had deliberately cut the building's power. Chloe's hands trembled with suppressed anger, her face contorted in a silent struggle. Vincent and another thug moved to seize her, telling her to come quietly if she wanted to live. Chloe recoiled, disgusted by their touch, a wave of revulsion washing over her. She lashed out with a powerful punch, connecting squarely with the thug's face. The thug stumbled back, stunned, as Vincent dismissed Chloe's resistance as crazy. Chloe followed up with a swift, powerful kick, sending the thug flying with incredible force. He screamed, clutching his head in agony as the impact of her attack echoed through the corridor. She continued her assault, her movements precise and brutal, leaving no room for her opponents to recover. Vincent watched in horror, covering his face as his associate was mercilessly beaten. Chloe then grabbed a shotgun, ready to deliver a final, decisive blow. The sounds of repeated impacts filled the air as Chloe finished her work, leaving Vincent groaning on the floor. Chloe stood over him, a determined look on her face, a faint wisp of smoke rising from her arm. Meanwhile, a young girl in a red cloak named Taylor walked through a dimly lit hallway. Chloe spotted Taylor and called out to her, a hint of surprise in her voice. Taylor hurried towards Chloe, concerned, telling her not to go off alone. Just then, another woman, Miss Chloe, Taylor's sister, appeared, holding a tray with a teapot. She wore a striking outfit with bunny ears, addressing Taylor with a calm smile. Taylor stared at her sister, astonished by her unusual attire, wondering how she ended up in such a getup. Miss Chloe smiled serenely, explaining that saving the world often required such sacrifices. The two sisters stood together, a stark contrast in their expressions. The winged agent, now fully transformed, held Mammon in a tight grip, declaring he needed to settle things. He vowed to finish the fight with Mammon that they had left unresolved earlier. But Miss Chloe simply dismissed him, stating there was no need, as she had already secured their objective. She held up two shimmering key fragments, the very items Mammon was so desperate to protect. The blonde angel from earlier, now standing beside Miss Chloe, confirmed she would extract the fragments immediately. Miss Chloe, with a knowing smirk, asked if the angel planned to remove them right in front of Mammon. She then revealed her final move. She had scattered the contents of Vincent's car trunk throughout the building. Vincent, still in his car, watched in horror as he saw the detonator in Miss Chloe's hand. Mammon, now fully charged with electric energy, roared in fury, declaring himself the only one who could face the angel. He screamed, electricity crackling around him, his power reaching its peak. A skeletal face appeared, perhaps another of Mammon's enforcers, also enthused with immense power. Mammon's face contorted in a final agonizing scream as he was engulfed in an explosion of light. The entire building erupted in a massive fiery blast, crumbling into dust and debris. Miss Chloe, the bunny-eared sister, stood amidst the destruction, a small, satisfied smile on her face, asking if she had been helpful this time.